Good evening. I would like to open the Conservation Commission meeting for Thursday, April 4th, here in the Wacoit Meeting Room at Mashpee Town Hall, 6:30 p.m. We are broadcasting live on local cable channel 8 and on the Town of Mashpee website. Before we begin, if you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I don't know. It's scary. It will be.
I'd also like to welcome Sarah, our newest member this evening, joining us.
Welcome, Sarah. My condolences. We'll get to be very good friends here till midnight, yeah. Yep.
And I would like to ask for any public comment not related to an agenda item, to offer that space if there is any. Hearing none, I will move on to our discussion. I'm going to skip over the minutes. So the first item is a deliberation of the commissioners and a determination on the hearing for 17 Monomoskoye Road. The commissioners that can weigh in on that are Sandy, Aaron, Steve, Paul, and myself. I believe we have Steve on the phone, and I don't think Paul has connected through yet. But I will entertain a discussion.
One thing, if I could just make a quick reminder that
Sure.
because we have a remote participant, please speak directly into your microphone. Please speak loudly so that everyone can hear who's participating remotely. Please be mindful of that at every hearing. Pull your microphone close and speak loudly so we don't have any audio issues. Thank you.
Does that apply to me too?
It applies to everybody.
I'm so surprised.
So just a reminder, this hearing was closed on March 21st, and tonight we are charged with making a determination.
Is the original paperwork in our folders? Or not? From?
I don't know if we have the paperwork in here. Do we have paperwork from that hearing in here?
We have the plan up, but
all
Marjorie,
right,
just
so
keep
we'll
in
go
mind,
back,
you're
yeah.
not
Okay.
deliberating on this.
All right.
Yeah.
Anyone? Aaron?
How does it work with the discussion? I mean, because you weren't there that night, right? So have you thought about it, or have you read into it, right?
Yes, so I watched the hearing afterwards
Yeah.
and listened to a lot of the audio because I couldn't really see anything with the Zoom
Yeah.
quality. I think the main concerns were around like groundwater elevation, setbacks with Chapter 25.
Right.
that
Do
kind
we
of
know
thing.
if Paul's on yet? Because I know that he and Sandy had some concerns. Do you want to talk about,
He's not on,
should we vote again?
right?
We have a quorum without him. Can only wait so long.
Right.
But we do, right? That's what I was going
We do.
to ask you
Right.
earlier.
We do. If you want, Alex, I can provide just a brief summary of how it was left off.
Sure.
From the last meeting. So the applicant had come back with some requested revisions to the plan. This is a raise and replace of a single-family home, upgrade of a septic system from standard Title V to an innovative alternative system, mitigation plantings and associated landscaping and hardscaping. The revisions that were made from the previous iteration of the plan that you see up on the screen, where they drew back the part of the garage that was going to require removal of natural vegetation, a small area, I think it was under 200 square feet, So they made the revision to eliminate that, the need for any removal of native vegetation on the northeast or northwest side of the home where the garage is. And they pushed back the leach fields further so that any removal of vegetation associated with the leach field is outside 150-foot setback from the bordering vegetated wetlands. They made some adjustments to the driveway, and I believe that kind of encompasses all of the revisions that were made at the request of the commission prior to the last meeting when they came before the commission again. The mitigation remained the same despite the adjustment to the garage to eliminate any removal of native vegetation. And there was additional deliberation when the commission had asked, and anyone can correct me if I'm wrong here, that if there was a possibility to put the house up on piles. It was established, there was a lot of dialogue about wave action, wave heights, and the applicants had provided documentation that the house is in a minimal wave zone from the FEMA flood zone. So it's subject to wave heights of less than 1.5 feet, I believe. So there was extended deliberation on that, and that led to a request of the commissioners to see if the applicant would be interested in putting the house up on piles. So they took a brief break to discuss that with the lawyer with his client, came back to the meeting a few minutes later and expressed that they felt the project as proposed meets all the standards, and they weren't going to change anything about the house to be put up on piles. So just to clarify, it's not required to put a house up on piles in a minimal wave action zone. So that was just a question if they'd be willing to do it, not a requirement. And that's pretty much how it was left off. There was no additional information submitted. The public hearing was closed, so there's no solicitation of public comment anymore and no acceptance of any new information. So that's basically how it was left off.
Right. Sandy, do you have any thoughts?
Well, just the Regulation 25 setback requirements that we've, been charged to look
Sandy, could you
for.
speak up just a little
Yeah,
bit?
you have to speak up
There's
a
a
little bit.
Regulation 25 setback requirements. I think that was a big one for me. And, the size of the footprint that's going on and, that it's going to reduce flood storage capacity. So I think those were big concerns for me.
No idea who's talking, so.
Steve, do you have comments?
No, I couldn't hear much at all. Whoever's speaking,
Oh,
they're not speaking loud enough for me to hear it, so.
So Sandy had just iterated that the concern for her comments was that, with the expanded footprint of the home, it's reducing the flood storage capacity of this lot because of the expanded footprint from the existing structure, and that there was no waiver request made from Regulation 25, Section C7C setbacks. Therefore, if that setback standard wasn't requested a waiver of, then the project doesn't meet that setback standard.
Okay.
Steve, do you have anything else that you want to add?
No, my concern was the wall height. It's a 10-foot wood framed wall. I know it meets all building code requirements, and they talked about the wave heights less than 1.5 feet. That's why, we tried to come to a compromise position to get on pilings for, resiliency, for flood zone resiliency and, reduce damage in the future. But, that the applicant denied that. So that was my only concern. Other than that, the whole project does improve the site with the mitigation, with the septic, everything. And I understand that there's more building in the setback. But, that's my only comments. That's why I made a an issue and close motion at the last hearing to approve it. And then the vote didn't pass. So
Okay.
that's all I have to say. So,
Okay. So I think we can make a, well, it would be making a new motion, correct?
Yeah, there would need to be a motion made, motion seconded, and then
Yeah.
voted upon.
So the
And
petitioners are not here?
They are,
they are,
but the
but
public
they've
hearing
already-
has
But
been
they've had their
closed.
public hearing,
correct.
and
It's
that's
closed.
closed.
It's closed.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
So in the event that a decision is not met tonight, we could extend the deliberation to Tuesday morning if we're in a stalemate and nothing is decided. That's the best I've got, because at least we'd have one more person to break the tie.
Right.
But just keep in mind that a tie vote defeats the motion. So if it's a tie vote, if there's a motion to deny the project without prejudice, and it's a 2-2 vote, the motion fails.
So it's not denied,
Right,
but it's not approved either.
right.
So then
Well,
would
it depends
still
on
be-
the motion made, whether it's, to close
Right.
an issue or to deny without prejudice.
Right, but if we can't come to any sort of conclusion tonight, we could do this Tuesday morning.
Can I
Just
just
keep
say
in
to, oh, I'm sorry,
So just keep in mind, that leaves us 3 days to issue a decision.
Yes.
back to where we are, yeah. I just wanted to say for the record that I cannot vote
Yes.
tonight because I was not present at the hearing. So I'm not abstaining,
You're just not.
and I'm being uncharacteristically quiet because I've been invited not to vote.
Okay. I will entertain a motion.
I make a motion to close an issue.
Okay.
Unless Steve didn't hear me.
Steve, did you hear Erin's motion?
no, I didn't. What was that?
She made a motion to close an issue.
Okay. All right. And was it seconded?
No.
No,
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay. Okay. Voting, Sandy,
No.
Erin,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
and I am a no. We will continue this discussion on Tuesday morning. Does that
We
work?
Can I-
will,
can
I
I
don't think we
make a-
will. I think it's denied.
It's denied.
Isn't
Well-
it?
well,
Right,
so
Stan?
allow me to clarify for a
Okay.
moment. Okay. So the motion put forth was to close an issue. That motion was defeated by a tie vote. You can have the option to have another motion to deny the project without prejudice. So I suggest that that be the next order of events, rather than just continuing to Tuesday.
Okay, I'll accept another motion if there is one.
I make a motion to, I'm sorry, what was the wording again, Drew? Is it,
To
Deny
deny
it
the
without
project without
prejudice.
prejudice.
okay, so to deny it without prejudice?
Steve?
I didn't hear. What was that?
Aaron made a new motion to deny the project without prejudice.
Okay.
We need a second from anyone.
Somebody else got to second that one. So,
Second.
Sandy seconded the motion.
Okay. Voting, Sandy. You,
Yes.
Yes.
Erin. Steve,
I'm a no.
and I'm a yes. So the project is denied without prejudice.
Okay. All right. You guys all set with me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay. Great. Thanks. Have a good night.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye. Yep. Bye.
I am going to forego our other pre and post hearing agenda items for this moment, and I am going to start with our first hearing. Now opening the hearing for 32 Barberry Circle, Matthew Kaminsky, trustee, and this is an RDA for a proposed maintenance of existing pier, ramp, and float. And the representative is themselves. Is there anybody here for this? Great.
Just
If
come
you
up
would,
to the microphone and give your name for the record.
Oh, we're really a tough bunch. I'll bring you water if you're ready.
Matt Kaminsky, trustee at 32 Barbary Circle. What is it called? A real estate trust.
great. Would you tell us a little bit about your
Yeah, so
application?
I'm here I got here because I've got an interim approval to maintain a dock, pier, and float, an interim of 30 years, and it expired on Wednesday. I mean, October, not Wednesday. And I came in the office, and here I am. I have to extend it.
So if I can
Yeah.
offer some clarification
Sure.
here. So what Mr. Kaminsky was referring to is the Chapter 91 license, the state waterways license, which the dock has. It never got issued a local permit under Mashpee's bylaw because the dock was created and established before the establishment of the town's bylaw. Therefore, because he has presented evidence that he has a valid or previously existing Chapter 91 license associated with this dock, we recommended that he come forward with a request for determination of applicability to get the footprint of the dock on record with the town under the bylaw. So there's no proposed work for this. This is simply to recognize the existing footprint, which you see up on the screen. That is the plan associated with the Chapter 91 license, so that we can recognize that that is the footprint of the dock. No work is proposed. This is simply to recognize and accept the existing footprint of the dock, which does meet all of our dock standards under Regulation 27.
And how long would that be in effect?
So obviously, I think, Mr. Kaminsky, at some point, you're going to have to rebuild this dock because of its current dilapidated state, I would
Yeah.
assume.
Yeah,
So,
I-
yeah,
I mean, for this season, I just have to shore it up so my wife will walk on it.
right. So
Wife will speak to
replacing,
you again.
But yeah, I want to, make improvements. I don't know what those will be right now, but
right, so any improvements that you do make, with docks, when it comes to dock licenses, whether it's from the town or from the state, you are allowed what's called maintenance in perpetuity to replace planks, railings, anything above water. If you're looking to replace pilings or anything below water, you have to come forward with a new permit, a notice of intent for that. So you're allowed to make those types of maintenance adjustments to the existing structure without coming forward with a permit, because the purpose of you coming here today is to recognize you have a valid and legal dock and to recognize that under the bylaw. But anything that you're doing for that dock that requires underwater work, that's going to require a notice of intent when the time comes. But if you need to replace planks, things like that, you can go ahead and do it without coming back before the commission for those simple maintenance issues.
okay.
Are there any questions from the commissioners?
Is there a vote needed?
Yep, yep, hearing none, I'll accept a motion.
And I will extend the motion to approve his application, right?
So the
A
motion under an
negative.
RDA is a negative determination.
That's right, for a negative determination, which is good. Negative.
A second?
Great. That was Marjorie made the motion and Aaron seconded. Voting, Sandy,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Marjorie,
Yes.
and Aaron.
Yes.
And I am yes as well. So we're
Done?
good to go.
Thank you.
So this is where you say that was relatively painless.
It was.
Okay, congratulations.
Got one done out of 13.
One
So
done.
let's keep it going. Now calling the 6:33 hearing for 0 Main Street, Town of Mashpee Department of Public Works. This is proposed stormwater improvements to the existing boat ramp and parking lot. The representative is Horsley Witten Group. Hello.
Hello, and actually, I'm Jordan Mora from the Association of Preserve Cape Cod, and I'm just going to give a few brief slides of intro to the project and then hand it over to Horsley Witten. As I said, my name's Jordan Mora. I work for the APCC, and I just wanted to acknowledge that this is a stormwater project that we initially got funding through the EPA SNEP, which is the Southeast New England Program grant, and contracted Horsley Witten to do designs for 20 different boat ramps across Cape Cod. The idea was to focus on public boat ramps because they are generally areas of untreated stormwater runoff to improve, and we want to improve that stormwater management so that we can improve water quality in the neighboring water bodies. So we've been working with the town of Mashpee and the Office of Fishing and Boating Access at the Mashpee Wakeby boat ramp for about 2.5 years now. We finished 75% designs last December, and Horsley Witten's been working through permitting with private foundation funds through the spring. So I just wanted to give that sort of preface and regional scope to the project. And I'm going to turn it over to Janelle Vieri, who works for Horsley Witten Group. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Janelle Vieri. I'm the lead designer on this project from Horsley Witten Group. We have some additional slides. So I'll just be going over the design of this project.
Great.
So I just wanted to reiterate that the goal of this project is to improve the water quality of the pond with green stormwater infrastructure. This shows the existing conditions of the site. It is a state-owned but town-maintained boat ramp, and there is currently no existing stormwater infrastructure on site. Runoff from Fisherman's Landing Road, as well as the rather large paved parking lot, flows down the drive aisle to the boat ramp and straight out to the pond. And I'll just turn it over to my colleague, Amy Ball, to talk about the resource areas.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, Amy. Hi.
For the record, Amy Ball, senior ecologist with the Horsley Witten Group. So we have a number of resource areas at the Mashpee Pond. These include the inland bank. I think this is a sort of an automated thing. Thanks. Inland bank, which is the green dashed line that you see there. Then we also have, next slide. The town's defined inland bank in a lighter green dashed line. Next. We have a small area of BVW, and then we have the no disturb buffer and the 100-foot buffer to the to the town line, and then the next slide is the BVW buffers, the 50 and the 100. So next, thank you. So one of the things that we wanted to start out with was a discussion that we are, as part of the project, seeking 2 local waivers. The first being a waiver of the newly promulgated expanded buffer zones that the Commission, I believe, promulgated about a month and a half ago. As Jordan pointed out, the project has been part of an EPA SNEP grant, and it was designed and permit ready by last November. However, it was not grant funded until more recently to take all of these projects to the permitting level. So the plans themselves have been completed by November, the stormwater report and the full design was done by November. So we are seeking a waiver from the Commission's recently enhanced buffer zones as the first waiver. And then, of course, the second waiver is because we do have a small amount of work in the 50-foot naturally vegetated buffer zone to accommodate one of the 5 bioretention areas that are proposed for the site to enhance the water quality or clean the water quality. And that siting of that particular bioretention area is based upon site conditions rather than anything that would change as a result of having a wider buffer zone in that location. And as part of the mitigating measures, in addition to the stormwater retrofit, we would be proposing to manage invasives in and around that particular area. So I would want to just put that out for the commission as part of our discussion. Next slide. The other thing that we have as a constraint is the pond itself is mapped as rare species habitat, both priority and estimated habitat. We have one plant, one moth, and 2 freshwater mussels. And we received a determination by Natural Hair about a week ago stating that they don't believe there will be any adverse effect to the rare species habitat, and there would be no take under the Massachusetts Endangered Species Act. I think from there, I'm going to turn it back to Janelle for all proposed conditions.
So this slide shows our proposed drainage areas for the site. So our main design goal was to capture and treat the runoff from the parking lot before it gets to the drive aisle and heads down to the boat ramp. So we achieved this by proposing to regrade the parking lot to direct the runoff to the 4 bioretention areas around the parking lot. We have also included 2 underground infiltration chamber systems to manage larger storm events, as well as a 5th bioretention area down near the boat ramp to capture and treat runoff from the drive aisle. Next slide, please. Yep. So zooming into these practices, this shows the 2 bioretention areas up near the entrance of the site. As I mentioned, we are proposing to regrade the parking lot to direct water to these practices. Runoff will enter the sediment forebays for pretreatment, overflow to the bioretention areas, and once the bioretention area has filled up, will enter the overflow structure and be piped to the underground infiltration chambers. The chambers have been sized to manage the 25-year storm. Any flows larger than this, we have included spillways at the bioretention areas to direct water to the wooded area around the parking lot. And this slide shows the other 3 bioretention areas. The 2 up at the parking lot have a very similar function to the 2 I just went over at the entrance. We've also included a speed table at the top of the drive aisle to direct the runoff to the inlets of the bioretention areas rather than flowing straight down the drive aisle. And the 5th bioretention area is down near the boat ramp. At this space, we are proposing to treat the 1-inch storm event, and any larger flows will continue down the boat ramp. Now, just touching upon some of the restoration components of the project, we are proposing invasive species removal down near that 5th bioretention area. The area is shaded in red. And we're proposing to plant the bioretention areas with native plants and have also included plants from the Wampanoag culturally significant plant list where appropriate on site. And then lastly, I just wanted to mention some of the other site amending components of the site. We are proposing to stripe the speed table to sort of act as a crosswalk as well as help slow cars down that are going down to the boat ramp. And then lastly, as we understand it, this is quite a popular boat ramp, so we wanted to take the opportunity to include signage that will educate the public on the importance of stormwater. And I'll hand it back over to Amy.
For the fun part, right? So we do have some resource area impacts or jurisdictional area impacts within the 50 and 100-foot buffers to the inland bank as defined under the local bylaw, and as well as the 50 to 100-foot buffer to BBW, and a small amount of impacts with the rare species habitat. But to to clarify this, most of the impacts are temporary in nature, and then there's repavement of existing pavement, but we will be removing pavement, impervious surfaces, and the small amount of work that's happening within the jurisdictional area is fairly small compared to the large amount of work that's happening up gradient and outside of jurisdiction, but will have a big beneficial impact to the resource areas by improving water quality for the site. I think next slide. And just reiterating that it will improve conditions where most of the work is happening in the upgrading area with an overriding public benefit for environmental and health reasons. And I think for that, we'll just turn it back over to the commission for questions.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions from the commissioners? While you're thinking about it, I will share a letter that was sent in from Sue Dangle on behalf of the Board of Directors of the Save Mashpee Wakepee Pond Alliance. I will not read the whole thing, but she speaks to how delighted they are that this is going forward, that there are tens of thousands of gallons of water with gas, oil, and rubber, along with other toxins, washed right into the pond with any 1-inch rainstorm, which is probably like the last 14 hours, maybe. She also noted how our boat ramp was selected as one of the most impaired in the group of like a larger batch of that you guys spoke to earlier. And she asks that we move to approve the design presented so that the project can obtain the necessary permits and that they can start finding sources of funding for construction. So again, that was from the Save Mashpee Wakepee Pond Alliance.
So that's the state that we're at right now in terms of a timetable.
Yep.
Well, I'm sure you said this before, but forgive me, it's raining and I forget. Your goal for the end date. Get your approval, move forward, get your funding, what, 18 months, 12, 18 months?
I might direct this to Jordan.
I wish you weren't laughing.
No, sorry. We didn't actually, I did not say when we're expecting to get construction done because we don't know yet. We are working with the town and the state to secure funding, but for the most part, we're looking to the Coastal Zone Management, Coastal Habitat and Water Quality Grant. And I don't think that RFP has been posted yet. If it has, it's been this week. So we're getting to the stage where we'll look for construction funds, but we haven't been able to secure any yet.
Okay.
So
You don't
we're
even
getting
do you have a
through-
guesstimate of how big a project it is?
How big in terms of cost?
Yes.
I want to say it's $1 million.
It's very high.
Yeah, I want to say it's close to $1 million with contingency.
Million here, a million there. You're talking real
But we're
money.
hoping to get, 500 at least from
Yeah. No,
500,000 from the grant. I will say that we do have a CZM, the Coastal Zone Management Grant, right now that goes that's funding some of these other projects through construction this coming year. And the Mashpee Wakepee boat ramp was included in that sort of funding package just to get the designs completed. So we're trying to get final designs for this site completed by early June of this year. So, fingers crossed for permitting, then final designs through, early or basically by the end of the spring. And then we'll look for construction funds as we can. But certainly I wouldn't expect construction to happen before, 2026, 2027 at the earliest. That would be my guess.
Isn't it frustrating?
No, but it's moving ahead. Look
No,
at us
you
go.
made a very nice presentation, no, and I'm.
Thank you.
I'm a big environmental fan here, but the longer they make you wait.
Yeah. Are there any other questions from commissioners? If there are none,
I have some questions,
Yeah,
actually,
please.
just a couple, if
Yeah.
you don't mind. And first, I want to commend you on such a well-thought presentation. The documentation is impressive.
Thank you.
On this, I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to the water treatment capacity of the structures that you're installing? I'm not familiar with this, but what's the mechanism that would, I mean, is it filtering for nutrients, or are we talking about like contaminants, like the oil and gas that you would find in a parking lot?
Yeah, so I guess starting off, the runoff enters into the sediment forebay, and the forebay helps settle the sediment down to the bottom of the forebay, and the water will overflow to the bioretention area. In the bioretention area, the water infiltrates into the ground, and the plants help uptake the excess of nutrients, as well as the soil.
I see, so it's like a submerged wetland, kind of.
Yeah, they're dry, but
I meant
similar.
underground. Sorry, yes, wrong.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, excellent. And the capacity for storage for this, is this thinking forward to increases in stormwater runoff? Yeah, absolutely. I understand that the regulations in this state are referenced here, but just thinking about the water storage and treatment capacity of these?
Yes.
Is that thinking ahead to increased precipitation?
So the bioretention areas are sized to treat and infiltrate the 1-inch storm event, which
Yep.
we consider the water quality storm. Storms higher than that, larger than that, will enter into the overflow structure that is piped into the underground chambers. So those have been sized to take volumes up to the 25-year storm. And then if that fills, then it'll spill over into the wooded area.
That's right, okay. Thank you. And then just one other question about debris and maintenance over time of, this is surrounded by a lot of woods, so leaves and sticks kind of clogging up the drain elements. Do you have a plan or any design elements that would?
Yes, so part of the stormwater management report includes a operation and maintenance plan, which includes checklists and schedules and sort of what the practices are and what maintenance they need.
Great, and that would be your firm conducting that operations and maintenance?
It would be the town.
The town, okay, I see, thank you.
Anything else from commissioners? Is there anyone from the public here this evening to speak to this or ask questions? Hearing none or seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, Madam Chair, to close an issue for 0 Main Street, Town of Mashpee, Department of Public Works.
Thank you.
Second?
Got a first and second.
Great.
Great.
Story of my life.
Voting. Sandy.
Yes.
Oh my God, I blanked. Sarah.
Yes.
Marjorie.
Yes, ma'am.
Erin.
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. Congratulations. It
Great.
passes.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations. Nice presentation.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Tell them to move that calendar up.
For mine. Go on, I'll do mine at the end.
We can do it, just go fast. We already have all the info.
All right, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. Or do you want me to do it at the end? It's up to you.
That's cool. I mean, they're all waiting, that's all. I didn't know. I'm here all night either way.
Yeah, I'm going to skip ahead over the 6:36 hearing. We'll pull that one at the end. To the 6:39 hearing of 24 Spoondrift Way, Dimitri and Julia Slopak. This is a proposed pier, ramp, and float, and the representative is Falmouth Engineering. I sprung that on you, sorry.
Thank you.
That works for me.
That's weird.
It's more feel-good at the end of the night, when we're peaky anyway.
Good evening, Chairperson Zolo, members of the commission. For the record, Mike Borselli, Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant, Dimitri and Julia Slopak.
Great.
They have applied to you for permission to construct a private recreational pier ramp and float at the property at number 24 Spoondrift Way. Spoondrift Way is coincidentally on a water body called Spoondrift Cove. And
Very clever name.
and there's several homes with frontage on Spoondrift Cove, which is pretty much a canal that was part of the development originally when they developed all the lots in here. It was done to provide access for boating, recreational boating. And if you went to the site or looked at my plan or looked at aerial photos, you'll see that not all, but pretty much all the properties have private recreational pier ramps and floats. And there's great boating around here, so the Slowpacks are interested in participating in that as well. So they retained us. We did a topographic survey and water depths measurements. We located both sides of the cove. We located the nearby floats, and we developed this plan. And then we had an informal meeting with Drew and the harbor master because we were very much aware of the possible concerns with navigation. We weren't so much, ironically, concerned with environmental issues because we think we meet all of your regulations. We have adequate water depth and all the other things in your regulations that concern docks, but we knew that there would be concerns about navigation and that you take input from the harbor master. So we had that informal meeting before we applied, and the harbor master gave us specific requirements and requests, and we designed the plan to meet that requirement. Specifically, he wanted to see a separation between the new float and the float on the opposite side of the water body owned by Mr. Rothenberg to have a 48-foot minimum separation. So we were able to site the float in that position to provide that separation and still provide adequate water depth under the float. Then we filed the application, and I see that he commented on this and has no objections. So I think we've satisfied him with regard to navigation. So now let's talk about the design. So this design is proposed in a location where the lot has a vertical timber bulkhead along the edge of a salt marsh. So the wetland resources are a man-made coastal bank. The bulkhead, I guess, is a coastal bank by definition. There's a strip of salt marsh, and then there's the water body itself, which is land under the ocean. So we've designed this structure in a way that the approach to the dock is a fixed timber pier, 4 foot wide by 16 feet long, that it'd be supported by posts. Is it possible to share the profile view?
Is it in the same PDF?
It's probably on another page. Oh, there it is.
Yep.
Slide that, slide that just to this side, this painting. Oh, yeah, there you go.
So you can see from the profile that there's a fixed portion of the pier that's supported by 6 by 6 posts, and then there's a ramp down to an 8 by 24 foot float, and we've shown this in the low tide position, so you can understand. And there'll be 2 pilings on the back side of the float to support that in position. So this is common and typical for the area. There's also a typical cross-section of the pier section. So that shows you how it would be constructed. And I think that sums it up. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I'll put it out to the commissioners if you have any questions.
just have one question? Thank you for coming here today. Will you just identify for me on the floats, the existing float, the new float, the proposed float? I'm a little confused, but I'm sure that you've done a lot of work on it. So I'm looking at the site. Are these the proposed floats, the two? One's at a diagonal, one's straight out, coming from what appears to be the new float closest to the land?
So what I'm here for is, there is no existing float. I'm here for this proposed 8 by 24-foot float. The other floats on the plan are on other properties that are nearby, and we show those for reference to demonstrate that there's adequate
So
separation.
those are your neighbors, your abutters,
Those are abutters, yes.
all three?
Yes.
Okay, well, this one looks like it's on his property.
Well, this is that's such a tight turnaround.
Yeah, yeah, I
They're
know.
so, like, packed
I'm
in.
familiar with the area,
Yeah.
it's very, very pretty, but it
Yeah.
is tight.
Anyone else from the commission? Sarah, do you have any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions either. Is there anybody here from the public that wants to weigh in on this one? There's someone in the back raising their hand. You can come up and just read your name for the record, please.
Gordon Penman, I'm in a butter at 27 Spoondrift.
Okay.
And
Which one of these is yours?
I'm not on the water, unfortunately.
Oh, you're not? Oh,
And,
I'm really just sort of jazzing you.
but this is also adjoins the common area on the cove, which we use, and also I have a mooring in the cove. And I just wanted to actually speak in support of this. This is the only house on the cove that doesn't have a dock. And I was concerned for my purposes in terms of, I have a little sailboat that ties up there at but where they've sited it, I think it won't affect people using the common area with their kayaks, me getting in and out with my sailboat. I thought they did a very good job of how they located it. And so, that's all.
Great, thank you.
Oh, it's very neighborly. of you. Thank you.
And then I believe, was there another individual in the back? Yeah, please come up.
Yeah.
Good evening.
Janet Cleary, and I live at 16 Spoondrift. I just had a photocopy of this, so I didn't get anything too clear, but we're at that float right here to the left of the arrow. My concern here is that how tight it's going to be once all the boats were in. I went today and drew in, there's 7 boats in this little cove here, and you know, Gordon was just talking about his sailboat's right there. That's our float there. We have our boat there. It's a 30-foot. Eric has a 30-foot. There's another boat that potentially is in next to it, Chris's house. So, like, when you look at all the boats that are in this area, my concern is, like, they're coming out so far off the bulkhead that there's not a lot of play between, yeah, they're saying there's going to be about 18 feet. It's like threading a needle if you're tying up your boats and you got kayakers and paddleboards and things like that going in there. So my question was whether or not they could pull that in. It's almost 30 feet off the bulkhead, and I don't understand why it had to come out so. I mean, I understand that maybe it's because of the level of the water there, but, I mean, can we look into dredging or something? Like, I just would rather it be pulled in a little bit, because it's going to be a very, very tight cove. There are tight coves there in this area, and it's a nightmare, and I just don't want to turn it into this. We've been there 25 years, and this has been, you know, we live there full-time, and it's just going to change the way we do boating and the area itself. So, I mean.
And what number are you at?
16.
So,
No, down at the corner here. Yeah, right there.
yeah, so that's yours.
Yes.
So good, thank you. I've identified one.
Okay. You know, like, which is, so I drew in the boats. I mean, I think that if you could see it with the boats, you can see how tight it is. It's approximately 30 feet off the wall. I don't know why it had to come out so high. Our dock is 6 feet wide. They went in with an 8-foot. I mean, like, I don't understand why, you know, they're great people. I'm not saying anything about them. They're great neighbors, but we just have to think about how it's going to affect the whole area of the cove, I mean, of the boating in there. And it's very busy with the people from Pompanesett coming over, paddleboarding and things like that. And then, like I said, Gordon's boat's there too. It's tricky in there, so.
Yeah. Thank you. So the proposed, it all fits under our design standards. It meets the regulations, but I don't know if, Mike, if you want to speak at all to why you chose to go out that far?
Yeah. I mean, we were very much aware of the tightness of the channel. Like I said, that's why we met with the harbor master, and he's been to the site. We went over this in great lengths with him, and we're taking his advice. We would prefer not to move it closer to shore because I think water depth becomes an issue. And I think if we were to even consider shifting it to shore, it would only be a foot or two, which isn't going to make any difference in the big picture of navigation. Yes, it's tight. You have to be cautious. This is not, you know, you're fairly moving when you putt out here to get out to use your boat. There's 48 feet of clearance, so I
With the
think.
boats, then it's not. I mean, then they have a 10-foot boat, and the people across from them have a 10-foot boat. So you don't have,
I think you're supposed to let me speak and then
Oh,
she
I'm
speaks
sorry.
after.
I'm sorry.
There's 48 feet of clearance, and even if both boats that would dock to the floats that are where the 48 feet is, even if they had 10-foot beams, which they don't, that would leave, deduct 20 feet, plus a little bit more because you got a fender and things like that. Say 22 feet from 48, you still have 26 feet of clearance, and you just cautiously motor out. I think that maybe if I were concerned at all, I think that it would be more difficult for navigation for the Clearys because of the mooring in the sailboat in very close proximity, and the other float that's even closer to them than our proposed float is. So, you know, everyone has to peacefully coexist and just be cautious in how they use this end of the cove.
Thank you.
no, I mean, do you have anything else to say? I mean, it's going to be very tight. I mean, I could show them that, but maybe it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Mike, can I ask you one question?
Sure.
When you were responding to that, since there's a concern about the boats, I'm very familiar with the area, so I know it's tight, right? In and around Bright Coves.
Yep.
Papaneset, for obvious reasons. But have the owners had a boat before, and if so, where did they go off of?
They currently have a boat, they're avid boaters, and I believe they keep it at a marina because they don't have the
Because they don't
benefit
have
of a dock, yeah.
Okay. So this is really their first attempt to create some sort of a ramp and a dock
Yeah, for their private use, yeah.
for their private use, yeah, okay.
Thank you. Are there any other individuals from the audience that have anything to add on this agenda item? Sure, please come up and state your name for the record.
I'm Eric Rothenberg.
Across the way? You're not across the way?
I use your name in vain.
I'm at 18 Spoondrift Circle, directly across from this dock.
Okay.
I have one of the biggest boats in this area. I've been there, I think, 7 years. And I'm impacted probably more than any other person here because I'm literally across the water.
Sure.
So I always try and think about water resources are a huge part of Mashpee. We all enjoy the water from the beach to the ocean to the places. This particular creek is a circle. It's a dead end. I wish I could say we had waves, but we have literally no waves in this area. So it's a beautiful spot to park a boat because it doesn't have any waves. We have pretty good high tides and low tides, but in the worst storms, which we've weathered through, I've watched the spit get completely washed over, and our area just doesn't have waves. We're safe and protected. It's wonderful. We're also, I think, all pretty well skilled at boating. Boats these days are not like they were in the 60s when I grew up. They're much more in control with bow thrusters and joysticks and this and that. I'm lucky I have a bow thruster. I don't use it that often because you get skilled enough. The beginning you do, you get nervous and you try it, but by the end you learn how to use the throttles to just come slowly into the dock and park.
Are cheating.
Yeah, it's cheating, huh? Okay. So I cheat a little every now and then, but luckily we don't have the wind to need that. But I like to be a good neighbor and let everybody enjoy the water. And I know the Slopeks for as long as I've been on Spoondrift Circle. And my boat's 10.5-foot beam. I think their boat's 8.5-foot beam because I looked it up. And that does leave a good 25 feet, which I'm comfortable with. I wish nobody had a dock there. That would be my preference, but I get that people want to use the water, and we all have to be good neighbors. So I'm in favor.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Anyone else from the public on this one? Sure.
Oh, sure. Hi, just come up and identify yourself, that'd be great.
Oh, thank you. Hi, my name is Allison Herron, and I'm here with John Bausa, who lives at 30 Spoondrift, the direct abutter to this property. And I just am trying to clarify if these people have purchased this property already. It's my understanding that it's contingent on them getting this boat dock approved, and the person that just spoke is brokering that deal, is my understanding. He's a realtor that's representing these people. So is this tonight to actually decide what's happening? Because the first chance we've heard about it is the letter that he got. And Jack actually, his family's owned this since the 1990s, this house, and he's just purchased a new boat, a 22-foot boat, which there hasn't been a boat at his dock of his own. Someone was renting the dock, but we just want to know more about the process and have more transparency as to, do these people even own this property yet? Or is this approval tonight contingent on them buying it?
If I can answer that.
Do you
Madam
have any knowledge of that?
My only comment in regards to that is that this commission is charged with the purview of protection of wetlands and not property ownership. So if you have a question about property ownership or pending sale of a house, it's not really under the purview of this commission.
So if
They're charged with protecting wetlands.
So if the people that are asking for this don't own that property, that doesn't matter?
Doesn't matter. Yeah. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
As long as the owner acknowledges that there's a permit.
Right. So
for their property.
if the commission decides to issue what's called an order of conditions, which is another name for the permit that they issue under a notice of intent application, that permit by law has to be recorded at the Barnstable Registry of Deeds, so it becomes legally binding. So whomever owns the house is tied to those order of conditions to make sure that the project conforms to the Wetlands Protection Act.
So this is the first anyone in Jack's family knew of this occurring, was when he got a letter and we drove up here tonight to hear what's going on.
Right.
We were never contacted about any of this prior. I guess the person that does own the house has owned it since 1962 when they built the house. And was there a reason they didn't ever have a dock there in all that time?
I can't answer that question because I don't know.
Okay.
So you're in a butter.
I'm representing or speaking for Jack, who's here, who's right next door, and this is the first we heard of it when we got a letter. Luckily, we got the letter, because we wouldn't have known anything about this.
Yeah, because I was
Chairperson?
going to say, we do send out a butters letter.
We got one letter,
Letters.
and it was just like a week or two ago.
Chairperson Zolo, if I could ask Dan to zoom back a little bit for reference, and then drag it down.
Oh, that's far.
I want to see the Bosa property, which is at the top of the page.
Oh.
For reference, that's good. So, first of all, the letter they received is an abutter notification that we're obligated to provide. That's
Yeah.
how you know. We're obligated to give you. There's no process where we engage neighbors other than that. That's why we're having a hearing. Number two,
Yeah.
we went to great lengths to balance the interests of all the other boaters in here, and we put the proposed dock 25 feet off the property line, which is the preferred separation from a property line by DEP, Division of Wetlands and Waterways. Finally, the float that Mr. Boza owns is way up there. And I just heard that they're proposing to buy a 22-foot whaler, and they've never had a boat.
Oh, no, they
There's-
had boats
well,
always.
there's no
Yep.
impact to them, there's no environmental impact or navigational impacts to them.
Well,
Sure. Okay.
Madam Chair, can I just ask one more question on
To whom?
this property? I'm a little confused now, so I'm not sure, so I'll go to Mike.
Okay.
Who currently owns this property, and have they acquiesced to the applicant?
The
And
owner
it's all-
is.
That might settle things.
Well, the owner's in the application, I don't have his name committed to memory.
Mark,
This one.
Mark Jennings Senior and Barbara Jennings.
And they acquiesce to the applicants who are interested in purchasing the property to apply for a dock, because it would be nice to know if we can have a dock before we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on the land. So that's why we're here.
Well, but what I'm saying is that is the piece of missing information that might be helpful to the other neighbors.
Yeah.
That the current
Sure.
owner is working correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah,
Mike,
no.
part and parcel
Yes.
with the buyer.
It's very common.
So they're not going behind his back and trying to get a permit to get,
No,
a ramp on a
absolutely.
boat on property they don't own.
it's very common for a buyer to want to have some certainty before they buy the property.
Okay, so,
Well,
so
I just
just
want to
to,
make sure
just
that
to
the
move this
current owner-
forward, and just so you do understand, we do frequently get applications where people want to put in a pool or do something with the property, and they come to us first to make sure that they can do what they want to do. That does happen. So if there's no other questions about the environmental side of it, I do want to move forward.
well, it's just what the next steps are. So this will approve, whether, if it approves the dock, then they can build the dock. Is that what happens?
Yes, they would need to get a Chapter 91 license still from the state, but yes, with the Chapter 91 license, then they can.
With your permission, I can explain a little bit on that?
No, because we have a lot more hearings to get
Okay.
to.
I was just going to say, she'll have another opportunity to comment at that stage.
Okay, that's fair. And
All
then,
right, thank you.
Was-
Yeah, that's all.
that's okay. I want to offer, if anyone else from the public had a comment they wanted to ask or question they wanted to ask, to give you guys a chance, because you're here tonight. You just have to come up and speak to the record.
Can I?
Yes, you can.
Good evening, yeah. I just wanted to mention that we are the Slowpokes and we have
Will you
answers.
tell us who you are, please? For the record, we need to have you.
She didn't hear you say your name.
I'm sorry, my name is Julia Slowpak and this is Dimitri Slowpak. We are the Slowpokes. We're buying this house. We have lived in Mashpee for 13 years. We've owned the house we actually own the house across the street, number 9 Spoondrift. And during pandemic, we moved here and we lived here and we decided to buy a boat and we have a mooring, but I have disabilities, I have problems with my back, and rowing to the mooring is very difficult, so we made a decision, if possible, to buy a house with a dock. They're unaffordable, so this is our only chance to enjoy boating like everybody else.
Yeah.
But we have an answer. So it used to be a dock in the past in 60s.
So you need to speak into the microphone, thank you.
So in the past, current owner use the existing public dock, which was destroyed and was never rebuilt. So, but they use they used to be in this place. It used to be a public dock in the past. So when they had a boat in the past, they used public dock.
Okay.
So they didn't need to build one. This is what the owner of Mark Jennings explained to us.
Okay. Thank you. All right.
Good, thank you for clarifying that. That was helpful.
Any final questions from the commissioners?
I just want to confirm, that the property ownership and the navigation really isn't under the purview of this commission, but I do want to confirm what I'm reading, which is that all of the regulations are met, minimal adverse impacts.
Sarah, could you speak up so that we could hear you?
Yes, I just want to confirm that the actual ecosystem is not going to be adversely affected by the installation of this dock for the regulations and the plan. Is that?
If you'd like, I can offer my comments if the
That'd be
chairman
wonderful.
allows. Yeah.
Yes, quickly, please.
So I just have a quick question because we did get the letter from Division of Marine Fisheries. Did you get copied on that, Mike?
I haven't seen it, no.
Okay. So they are suggesting float stops for this. Is that feasible? To prevent grounding at low tide?
Yeah, that's feasible.
Okay. So if we add in a condition to require float stops, there's no objection to that?
No.
Okay. All other aspects of this proposal meet the standards. We have a regulation 27, which deals with piers, ramps, and floats. Walkway can't be wider than 4 feet. It is not. Float size maximum is 200 square feet. This is 192 square feet. It is a water-dependent project, therefore, it is allowed to have piles driven into the substrate in order for the ramp, pier, and float to be stabilized. Navigational issues, while I don't dismiss them, ultimately they will be hashed out because all dock projects, after receiving a local permit from the town, have to go to Chapter 91, the State Waterways Licensing Agency, and ultimately hash out any navigational concerns. So the project in totality meets the standards under the bylaw, and any navigational issues will be worked out at Chapter 91 when it gets to that stage.
Thank you.
Thank you, Drew. I would entertain a motion, if there's one.
Madam Chairman, I'll make a motion for 24 Spoondrift Way, Dimitri and Julia Splopak, for close and issue, with the conditions that the dock cannot be constructed until a valid and recorded copy of a Chapter 91 license is provided to the Conservation Department and Harbor Master, and that float stops are used on the float.
Perfect.
That's it.
Thank you.
Second?
Great. First from Sandy, second from Marjorie. Voting, Sandy.
Yes.
Sarah.
Yes.
Marjorie.
Yes.
Aaron.
Yes.
And I am a yes as well.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Now opening the 6:42 hearing for 71 Timber Lane Drive, Henry Ho and Yan Liu. This is a proposed construction, maintenance, and permitting of a pier with the reconstruction of existing timber pier connecting to existing stairs. Representative is Cape and Islands. Thank you.
Good evening. For the record, Raul Lizardi from Cape and Islands Engineering, representing the applicant and property owners for this project and this application of a notice of intent. The project is to replace a previously licensed pier on Santuit Pond, which is a freshwater pond. The applicant recently acquired the property, and the existing license for the former pier was an interim license from the state. As the new owners of the property, they have to go through the process of obtaining a new license. But along with that, they want to just build a new pier. A couple of things to mention on this. The alignment of the former pier was kind of aligned straight out following the existing stairs down the bank. And it kind of, it's not an encroachment because these neighbors don't own the water on the Santuit Pond, but it kind of goes towards the front shoreline of the neighbor. What the new owner wants to do is realign it to keep it completely in front of their shoreline. So we do have a proposed modification to the end of the existing stairs. That's the only change that we're proposing for the stairs that go down the bank. So at the bottom of the stairs, there is a platform landing, and we're proposing to replace the rectangular landing with a trapezoid-shaped landing that will allow us to get the angle for this new pier. After this landing, the proposed pier is of aluminum material. They're frames. They get put in the water at the end of the landing. There's a couple of feet on each section of aluminum frame, and then the decking gets installed on top of the frame. There's minimum construction equipment needed for this type of installation. The majority of the heavy work will be for the installation of the post to get the timber platform at the bottom of the stairs. The wetland resources here, of course, is Century Pond, which is land underwater. There's a DEP inland bank, and then there is the local Mashpee inland bank. The project was briefly reviewed with the harbor master before submitting this notice of intent, and there is no navigational hazards with this project. We did receive a letter from DMF. A couple of notes were received from DMF, and the applicant agrees with those conditions if the commissioners want to add them as part of the condition. We also had a few email correspondence with Drew, and there's a couple of comments that Drew has that may become part of our condition if this commissioner chooses to approve this project. I reviewed those comments from staff with the applicant, and the applicant is okay with what Drew had recommended. And in specific, that recommendation is, should this pier be maintained in the water year-round, and any damage happens during the off-season, the homeowner or the owner of the property is responsible for removal of all the components from the pond. And any required restoration or reconstruction will have to go through the proper permitting that's needed. If there's any questions, I'll try to answer.
Thank you. Going out to the commissioners.
The only question that I had, Raul, so I see the drawings look fine. It appears as though everybody who has had to overlook it has passed on just about everything, but there was a concern, Drew, that you had on the construction and how it relates to the seasons.
Yeah, Raul had just touched on that. So my concern was that this is just based on how we see most docks and freshwater bodies. They're typically the aluminum pieced together,
right,
placed in the water, not with permanent piles like you see in coastal areas. So I've seen examples of aluminum docks that were left in the water year-round, and when you get freeze, thaw, ice rafting, winds, elements, aluminum doesn't stand up to those elements as well as pressure-treated piles. So that's why I brought that to the attention of Raul. It's really discretionary of the homeowner. I just wanted to make it known that if this aluminum portion of the dock remains in the water throughout the winter, the likelihood of ice damage is probable.
Pretty much, yeah.
So the homeowner just needs to be made aware that if this disconnects or gets dislodged from the platform, it is his responsibility to deal with that situation
I see.
immediately. So it doesn't become storm-borne debris, it doesn't sink to the bottom of the pond and impact the bottom sediment. So it's just typical that most aluminum docks on freshwater bodies are removed seasonally and stored upland to avoid that scenario. But ultimately, it's the homeowner's discretion.
Gotcha. All right. You're saved, Raul.
Unless we were to require them to remove it.
Unless you made it a condition of removal, yes. Yep.
Right. Drew, from your institutional knowledge, have we done that in the past?
It's usually been a part of a proposal that because the homeowners don't want to risk damage, that they voluntarily put forth in a notice narrative that they will move the dock seasonally to an upland location. I understand the situation here. You're dealing with a very steep embankment. There is no sandy beach shoreline. There's no opportunity to store it immediately adjacent to the water. So I get that. It's definitely a legit concern. So if they were to remove it seasonally, they would most likely have to do it via the public boat ramp. Because you can't store it on any naturally vegetated areas of inland bank, because that may smother
Of course.
vegetation and have an impact to the bank. So,
Of course. Are there any other questions from other commissioners?
I just got a quick thing.
Sure.
I also wanted to make notice, because it is in Intuit Pond, on April 15th of this year, there's the 10 horsepower limit. So if they are having any boats that are over 10 horsepower, that's April 15th of this year. If they are a permit holder and a direct abutter, they have till April 15th of next year. So,
right, but for new docks, it's this year.
For new docks this year.
So yeah, early on when we reviewed this project with the property owner, they don't intend to use motorized watercraft. The intention here is for the kayaks and canoes and some of the smaller craft that they have. And I did review with the homeowner, during the winter, the deep freeze part of the season. Yes, it could get damaged, and he understands that that's possible, and he's willing to remove it if that becomes the case. But he's confident enough that those conditions are not as often as maybe as it used to be. But he is willing to remove the aluminum sections if it becomes too cold and freeze becomes an issue.
Another suggestion would be a bubbler to ensure breakup of ice, if that's something he'd be willing to do. Just to throw it out there as a suggestion, that's all.
Any other questions? What were the conditions that DMF had put on it or had suggested?
So yes, I'm not going to read the entire letter, but it says, comments for consideration. The proposed extension appears to be greater in size and in size needed for water access and vessels dockage space. MADMF recommends reducing the footprint of the permanent extension to avoid additional shading and public access impacts. Fuel spills from refueling of construction equipment will adversely impact sensitive resource areas. Impacts to resource areas can be avoided by prohibiting all land-based equipment from being refueled on site. If equipment is refueled on site, adequate containment and cleanup materials should be required to minimize the impacts. So the second bullet point, that's I believe a standard condition for piers projects.
Sure.
The first standard, the maximum size of a terminal section for a fixed float which is different than coastal floats, it's 150 square feet in Mashpee. This one is 120 square feet, so we're below the regulations here in Mashpee for freshwater ponds.
Okay. I see. Is there anybody from the public here for this one? It's a little bit different of a dock, I guess.
No, you just lost 3 rows.
Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I make a motion for close an issue for 71 Timber Lane Drive, Henry Ho and Yan Lee, with the conditions, I guess. Do we want to list all the conditions that DF?
I think
No.
you, I think you've got the
That's just
conditions.
standard?
You're good now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's any added conditions.
No.
Okay.
The recommendation from Division of Marine Fisheries, but it does meet the local bylaw
Yeah.
specs for float size or platform size.
Okay. And the seasonal thing, they'll.
Yeah, we
need
can,
to
we
say-
can add in language to the order that, if, for instance, if the dock does become damaged and dislodged, it'll be the responsibility of the homeowner to rectify that situation as soon as feasible.
Okay.
Something to that effect.
Okay.
Who's taking good notes?
Dan.
Dan.
Just so that we add that to the, that's going to be a motion attached to the,
Well, it hasn't been seconded yet. The motion on the floor.
And the complete motion is?
To close an issue.
Just to close an issue, no additional.
Just that they,
Language.
just that they remove it if there's a problem at the moment.
Is that in there? Is
Yes.
that part of it?
Yeah.
Did you get that, that that's in there, that's part of it? Okay, then I second.
Great. Discussion amongst commissioners, if there is any. I would just say, if this gets damaged by ice at all, I would say if we could write into it, that then they have to remove it in the wintertime. Like, they can have a trial period, and if it doesn't get damaged for a couple of years, okay, but then once it does get damaged, like, I don't know, I feel like it's gonna be more of a hassle to try and go clean something up that's sinking to the bottom,
Yeah.
and it's more of an issue to the environment than to just remove it seasonally, proactively. I know they have to do it through the ramp, and that's not ideal, like go to the boat ramp, but,
Yeah, but the other neighbors don't have that same.
No, it's pretty common along this stretch because it's all steep embankment. So sometimes there can be clever storage to lay it right over the footprint of the access stairway down the bank, stacking, there's all kinds of ways to try and avoid smothering vegetation on the bank and using that area as storage for your dock components. But here, I don't really see that opportunity. So I think it's just something that, my recommendation in the interest of moving on would be to just keep an eye on this situation. It doesn't necessarily have to be a condition. It can be something that if we see happen, we can reapproach with the homeowner and then,
Okay.
require that kind of condition based on that scenario.
sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Great, thanks.
to you?
Yep. Voting, Sandy,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Marge,
Yes.
Erin,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well.
Thank you.
Now calling the 342 Monomoskoye Road hearing for 6:45 PM. Eric J. and Jody B. Sandman, trustees of the Sandman Real Estate Trust. This is a proposed removal of existing float, installation, maintenance, and licensing of new float, including the removal and reset of 2 existing timber piles. Representative, Cape and Island Engineering.
Good evening. For the record, Raul Lizardi from Cape and Islands Engineering, representing the property owners and applicant for this notice of intent. This project, unlike the just prior one, this is a coastal pier project. The existing pier is licensed and it has been previously permitted by this commission. What the homeowner wants to do is replace the existing float. The rest of the structure will stay in place. The fixed portion of the pier remains. The ramp will be removed and reset, but it will be the same ramp. The intent is to remove the existing float and replace it with a 200 square foot float. 2 of the existing piles would be removed and reset to secure the new float. The wetland resources is, of course, land under the ocean, which is Great River, land containing shellfish. There is a salt marsh along the shorelines, but the project will not interfere with the salt marsh. And there's, of course, the buffer zones to these resources. Similar to the project before, we did review this project ahead of time with the harbor master. A couple of iterations of some graphics with the harbor master depicting some of the moorings that are located in close proximity to this pier. But the harbor master determined that there is no navigational hazard with this proposed float. We did also receive a letter from DMF for this project. This project is proposing flow stops. Currently, the float doesn't have flow stops. What we're intending to do is keep the flow from being grounded in the bottom of Great River. So we do propose flow stops. For that, we still need 4 piles, just like there are. We have chains on each 4 piles, so it keeps the flow from grounding. The existing pier is constructed, as you can see on the picture that Dan has. It's got grading, so there's light penetration. However, we're not doing any changes to the actual pier itself. It's just for replacing the float section. This replacement of the float does increase the footprint by 10%. So after this project, if approved by this commission, it will go through the process of getting a license through the waterways at DEP to license the extension or the increase of more than 10% of boat pier improvements. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, Raul. Are there any questions from the commissioners? Do you have any? Sure.
Yeah, I see there's a note here that the applicant's been asked to provide information on the vessel to be docked there. Do we have that information this evening?
I don't have the information of the vessel, but it's the same boat that the current owner has on site. So at the moment, there's no proposed changes to the vessel. I just don't have the information of the vessel.
I see. Thank you.
Well, can I suggest that that information be furnished as far as the draft of the boat that is currently docked in use at this float location? The reason I ask and the reason I'm a little concerned is because you're asking for an increase in float size, and that kind of lends itself to an increase in boat size. So can you explain the rationale why why the homeowner is requesting an increase in float size?
Yeah, I know that when we early started reviewing this project with the homeowner, one of the things, this boat is a 6-foot wide float. They dock along the long side, and it becomes wobbly. So what we're proposing to do is an 8-foot and longer to get better stability on the float. But then I'm not sure, I know I saw him earlier, if the applicant is on the Zoom. He's one of the participants on Zoom, that maybe he can answer the size of the boat.
There was another person earlier who left, so I'm not too sure.
So I believe I lost him.
That could be a condition of approval to furnish that information. Division of Marine Fisheries also has comments on this. I don't know if you went over that or not, but well, first let me back up that the Shellfish Constable has recommended a shellfish mitigation fee in the amount of $720 for alteration of shellfish habitat from new piles and increased float size and the shading that results from that increase in float size. So that would also be a condition of approval, payment of $720 shellfish mitigation fee prior to dock construction. The other comment is that Division of Marine Fisheries recommends installation of float stops to provide 2.5 feet of clearance from the bottom substrate at low tide to prevent grounding of the float. So those are the conditions.
The size of the boat, do we ever condition that it can't be bigger than that? I mean, if they give us that information, what do we do with it?
We basically just, it's good information to have so that when we put in a typical boilerplate condition when it comes to floats associated with fixed piers, that they either be furnished with float stops or the commission be assured based on engine draft that there will be no prop dredging of the bottom sediments. So that information lends itself to the assurity that that condition won't happen as a result of the boat moored at this float.
So that's standard language.
It's
We have
standard-
that in there.
Yeah, it's standard
I see.
boilerplate, but it'd be good to have the information submitted so we can just be sure
Sure.
what the draft is. And Raul is your client. You may not know this, have any objection to float stops and the recommendation of the Division of Marine Fisheries.
I did review the flow stops with him. The
Yep.
plan calls out for flow stops.
does, okay.
So he's already good
Okay,
with having
great.
flow stops.
Fantastic.
I just had a question about why would this be the third order of conditions for this dock? Why they had two previous ones, according to your application? I'm just curious why they pulled a permit in 2003, and then why they pulled another one in 2007. Maybe it was just to extend it, but it's a different order. Have they been extending the size of this repeatedly? Like, have we ever said in a previous order, like, have we had conditions in previous orders against this exact kind of thing?
So if I could clarify, so the original pier permit was in 2003. there was an extension of that permit, not an extension of the pier, an extension of the permit.
permit, yeah.
In 2006. Then there was modification to the piers, and there were several piers on several properties for lateral access along the shoreline to comply with the DEP requirements of lateral access. So stairs were added to the pier, so there was a modification to the pier. But in
And that
terms,
modification was done in the 2007 permit?
that was
It would make sense if it was a new number.
in 2016, the stairs.
Yeah, there's another, I'm just curious if we have any record of what we had said in the past when we permitted this twice.
I mean, the number of permit requests, are allowable. There's no cap on how many permits you can request for a given project, but I think the bottom line is that the float meets the maximum square footage, so it meets our current standards. I'm not sure how to answer the question about how many permits they've applied for.
But
or
why
does
would
it-
they have multiple permits to construct and maintain a dock? And there's only one dock?
So I'm not sure if the first permit, even with the extension, never got fulfilled.
I see.
And then a second one was done because at that point, maybe the finances was there to build it.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. I understand. Is there any questions from the public or comment? Okay. Seeing none. Drew, you already gave, I think, all of your,
Yes. I would
Okay.
just request that those conditions be part of the motion.
sure. the-
You can skip over the float stop since it's already part of the design, so you don't need to condition that, but the shellfish mitigation fee should be verbalized as a condition.
Right. I will entertain a motion with that condition.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion for 342 Monomoskoye Road, Eric J. and Jody B. Sandman, trustees, to close an issue with conditions of payment of shellfish mitigation fee of $720 prior to dock construction and submission of engine draft vessel to be docked at this location. And I guess we don't need to mention the floats, right? Right. Okay.
Great.
Second?
Got a first from Sandy and a second from Aaron. Thank you. Go to voting. Sandy?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes, ma'am.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. The motion passes. I will now open the 6:48 hearing for 104 Lakewood Drive for Mark Bannon. This is a proposed raise and replace of single-family dwelling, site cleanup, replacement of walkover structure and seasonal pier system. The representative is BSC Group. And just as this came up earlier, I'll mention it. The owner of record is John and Deborah Marsters. This is continued from March 7th. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Mark Bannon, so I'm here to support Hannah in her presentation about our proposed project.
Just so the commission is aware, Hannah is participating remotely through Zoom, so please speak loudly as you can so that she can hear everybody in the room.
Thank you very much, everyone. For the record, my name is Hannah Raditz, wetland scientist with BSC. I will go through a list of all of the proposed activities for the site. As you can see from these photos on the screen.
Hannah?
Hang on a second.
Hannah, your volume is way too high.
Too loud or too quiet?
Too loud, too loud. We can hear you. I don't know if you can adjust volume on your end, but it's way too loud for us.
You can turn the mic down potentially on a Zoom.
Is this better?
Down.
Lower.
Lower? Okay. Is this okay?
It's the same.
Still too loud?
That's better.
That's better.
The IT
Okay,
fix
I'm
it.
so sorry. For the record, my name is Hannah Raditz, wetland scientist with BSC. As stated, this is a proposed raise and replace of an existing dwelling. The photos on the screen indicate the existing dwelling, which is currently at the very edge of Mashpee Pond. The site has become quite degraded over the last few decades. There are numerous pieces of debris, boats, floats, and other abandoned items along the lower portion of the inland bank, which extends from the Mashpee Pond up to the top of the slope. This is a very steeply sloped sandy site, which is dominated by quite a few invasive species. The understory is quite sparse, as I noted in the wildlife habitat assessment that I conducted on this site. There's quite a few areas of exposed soil, and a lot of the shrubs are also non-native invasives, such as forsythias and multiflora rose. There's also quite a growth of English ivy on the slopes. So what is proposed for this project will firstly involve the site clearing and preparation at the top of inland bank. This is that area that was just circled there. There's currently some sheds and other debris there, and some vegetation that would be cleared, and a platform would be set up for a crane. Much of the work would be done by hand and using small equipment to remove the dwelling, and then the crane would be used from its station on wooden timber mats to remove the existing dwelling, to assess and remove all portions of debris and garbage from the slope, and also to pump and to crush and potentially to remove the existing cesspit which is associated with the dwelling. Once that work is complete, work on the rest of the proposed work will begin. So what is proposed on the site in the latest revised plans, which I can share unless they're available.
You can speak softer.
Yep, that looks like the right one. So the plans have been revised since this application was submitted. This was part of the reason that we requested a continuance. So after hearing from Natural Heritage and receiving our partial determination, the concerns that were raised about various mapped species on the site, one of them being pondshore knotweed, is that impacts below 62 feet in elevation could be reducing the chance of this species, if it were to be found on the site, to spread. So we revised quite a few of the previously proposed activities, one of them being a gravel path and a sand beach at the edge of the pond. That's been removed. Patio had been proposed within the footprint of the existing dwelling. That's been removed as well. And as I mentioned, plantings will cease at 62 feet in elevation. So for the rest of the slope, this will be restored following the removal of the dwelling and the debris, with loaming and seeding with what's called, I believe it was the New England logging road mix. This was revised from the original seed mix, as the original seed mix contained one grass that was not native. So this mix now includes only native grasses. This will be quite an improvement to the site. As I mentioned earlier, the understory is quite sparse. There's patches of English ivy or exposed sandy soil, and these grasses will do a very good job to stabilize the slope and to provide additional ecosystem betterments to the inland bank. Additional plantings will include some small and medium-sized shrubs, as well as some red cedars and gray birches to be placed along the slope. Moving on from there, what's also proposed at the base of the bank is the pier and landing for the coastal, for the inland bank walkover structure. So the inland bank walkover structure, as you can see from the sort of hole in the green line on the plan, that is going to follow roughly the footprint of the existing walkover structure, going through the existing dwelling and down to the landing at the beach, which has stairway so that public access is maintained along this great pond. Then the pier to be installed has been revised from what was originally submitted to conservation. So Natural Heritage has some concerns about mussels, which remains in their final determination. Their request was that in order to be less impactful to mussel populations, that we install permanent pilings. So the proposed pilings are now pressure-treated wood pilings, and all pier components will be seasonal and removed at the end of the summer season. The current plan for storage will either be to store them in upland areas on the site, such as in the driveway or at the far end of the site, or to be stored off-site. That concludes that portion of the site. So what remains in this project is the proposed dwelling. The proposed dwelling was placed as far back from resource areas as possible. It is above inland bank, which is indicated on the plans. And as you can see, the edge of the lawn is indicated by the edge of the green overlay, which is indicating the proposed plantings. The septic system components were also placed as far away from the resource area as possible, while also meeting all the site setbacks required for this site. That concludes the majority of the proposed activities. This site, obviously, it's a challenge to set this up appropriately. However, there's an extensive network of sediment and erosion controls that will be installed before any site work occurs. These will be maintained in place until the site reaches appropriate levels of stabilization. And in addition, if the slope itself, being very steep and sandy, shows any sign of erosion, we are proposing to have some sort of jute or core fiber on hand to be stapled, or some sort of spray seeding, and additionally hay could be spread in areas, especially areas that Natural Heritage requested to not be planted at the base of the slope. Access to the site will be from the driveway, and as I mentioned earlier, the site clearing will occur first before the work on the bank happens, to allow for an area for the crane and for any temporary storing of debris. So at this point, I will go ahead and turn it over to the commission for their questions.
Thank you, Hannah. That's all right. Drew, is there anything that she didn't touch on that you would want to add? I think your notes kind of lined up with a lot of what she said, but.
Yeah, for the most part, yes. So I did want to just touch on, so a good portion of the project area lies within estimated and priority habitat for rare species under Natural Heritage. And so Natural Heritage did submit a letter with very specific conditions as far as how this project should be carried out in terms of deconstruction of the existing house and then restoration of the inland bank. So without getting into each one of those conditions, which are lengthy,
Sure.
in the interest of saving time, all of them will be incorporated into an order of conditions to ensure that rare species habitat concerns are fully met and complied with. And that also includes the dock as well. So the dock, this is getting more common from Natural Heritage when it comes to docks and freshwater bodies that contain freshwater mussels, the rare species, is that they're looking to make these docks more kind of locked into the same place year after year when they're brought out of the water and back in, and even having permanent footings in the water to ensure the dock doesn't move from place to place, therefore disrupting additional rare species habitat. So it makes perfect sense
Sure.
to have the dock remain in the same area year after year. And then just to quickly touch on Board of Health, so we can kind of not get bogged down in the Board of Health concerns, because their comments are a little lengthy, but basically this house can have 4 bedrooms by right. They would need to essentially, property is, well, just read their comments. Property is in a designated sewer area and can have up to 4 bedrooms by right. However, because it is in a Zone 2 water recharge area, the applicants must appear before the Board of Health for a variance from 310 CMR 15.215 for 4 bedrooms. with a conventional system. The variance would require a letter from the Sewer Commission that provides an estimated sewer connection date, and if connection does not occur by that date, the variance would expire. And this area is slated to be sewered next year, so it's coming up. As an alternative, at their meeting, at the Board of Health meeting on February 21st, 2024, the Board of Health approved the use of aggregate land located at 105 Lakewood Drive, along with a denitrifying system to gain additional bedrooms for 4 bedrooms total. Septic plans to be reviewed upon submission to the Board of Health. So, in a nutshell, Board of Health is on it. There's no reason to be concerned about 4 bedrooms because one way or another it'll be connected to sewer or it'll have an IA system and aggregate offset nitrogen land. So in either scenario, Board of Health concerns will be met. No other comments.
The aggregate offset area is one of those swaps. Yes?
Yes, that's correct. Totally allowed.
I know it's totally allowed, and it annoys me that it's totally allowed, and I think it should be mentioned every time these come before us until we address it, but such an increase in its, Board of Health has concerns, and I don't know.
They don't have concerns. They've listed the way that this is going to go about to be in compliance with Board of Health standards.
Yeah, but there were 3 different, hurdles that have to be
Right.
cleared.
All will be managed by Board of Health.
That's their problem.
That's their purview.
We've already talked to the Sewer Commission.
I'm sorry, say it again.
We've already talked to the Sewer Commission, right? So they're on board. They're preparing the letter. I've talked to Zach. We're in contact with him. He's got the meeting set up for us. We're going to, we're going through the process. This was actually his suggestion to us.
Right.
So
Oh, I'm
he
sure.
proactively called me and said, you don't need your, specialized AI system, right? Because we're going to be connecting to you in another year or so.
Right.
And
Hopefully.
we'd have to take it out anyways, right? So, I think we've got all of those conditions being met. We're
Yeah.
pretty proactive with the Sewer Commission and with the Board of Health to make sure we're in compliance.
Oh, I'm sure of that, but I just think the dates are very optimistic about when that area or any of the areas are going to be sewered. And the owners, I suppose that what we're saying, what you're saying, Madam Chair and Drew, is that it's not within our purview, so we do not have to concern ourselves with this in approving this particular proposal. I'm just saying, a year from now, they're going to come back. If it gets sewered, I'm going to be one of the ones jumping in and saying, yay, congratulations that we've actually moved this fast. But it's not moving that fast right now.
Sure.
And they're all going to come back to us. This is not on you specifically. I'm sure you're doing everything well. But the sewers and going from a Title V to a 4-bedroom and
It's a cesspool, right?
Yeah.
it's a what?
It's an existing cesspool. It's not
So
even
I
a
am-
compliant
Cesspool,
Title
yeah.
V system.
So I gave you an upgrade.
Yeah.
Well,
We don't have the upgrade. I think, the existing structure obviously is not in great shape.
Right.
And it has a
Obviously.
septic right next to the lake.
That's what I'm
that-
saying.
That,
So this is a win.
we're going to remove at great expense to try to make sure that, we're environmentally sound
I
in the area.
understand.
Yeah.
I understand. It's just that when you overlay them all on one another, I'm taking the opportunity, which sadly falls on your time, to say this is not an ideal way for a town to plan its sewer system,
Sure.
the number of bedrooms, and what is so close to the water, fresh or salt. It's so close to the water. There's an awful lot of waivers going on.
Sure.
But it's a cesspool that's going to be.
Well, we're doing it
So
all
it's a
because
win,
it's got to be
right?
better than a cesspool. What's
Correct.
not better
yes.
than a cesspool?
Right. I had a client who had a cesspool last year, and she just connected to the sewer, and
I-
we let her
I'm
keep it.
happy to hear that.
Yeah.
I hope that happens in this case.
And I'd say some of the neighbors
You're moving pretty fast.
would comment that really this has become a teenage hangout, and God knows where they're
Think so.
going to the bathroom all summer long when they're there, so,
Now, did you
cleaning up
really
the.
have to bring that up?
I do have to bring that up because we think
Colorful
that,
detail.
we're bringing significant improvement to the area and to the
Oh,
town.
you don't have to sell me on that. I know that's true. I'm just saying, it's one of my bugaboos that we just keep saying, we keep pushing it off to the
Sure.
We just keep pushing it off. And the real issue is for the Conservation Commission, for the town of Mashpee, not to be concerned about how much poop is going in all of our systems and how close it is. Go through all of these issues, you know, to make sure that we have the setbacks. And then there's always an exception, and it bounces around a lot. Apologize for using your time for my soapbox, but such is life.
Okay. Other questions from commissioners?
I had just one.
Sure.
Their new driveway, what type of material is being used on the driveway?
I'm going to leave that to the
Hannah, can you hear
engineers.
us? Can you ask her what type of material?
Sorry, I just had to reduce my volume before I said anything.
Keep
I couldn't hear that question, something about materials?
What is going to be used for the
On the
driveway?
driveway.
What material for the driveway?
Driveway material.
Driveway material. I believe it will be bituminous pavement.
Is that pervious, Hannah, or impervious?
Trying to look at the plan for the answer to that, I apologize. I'm not sure. I'm sorry.
Do we want to condition that?
Well, yeah, we don't want.
It should be scoped. I would just have to get back to the commission to answer that question.
So just, we can condition it to be pervious.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Do you have any? Erin, are you okay?
I'm good, yep.
Are there any questions from the public or comments? Okay. Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I will make a motion for 104 Lakewood Drive, Mark Bannon, to close an issue with all conditions stated in the National Heritage and Endangered Species Program determination letter to be incorporated into an order of conditions. Proposed areas long cannot exceed 10% of the area of the lot within wetlands jurisdiction. Submission of documentation verifying this. All proposed lawn areas must be of a native clover variety with documentation thereof submitted to the Conservation Department prior to installation. And also to request the driveway be made of a pervious material.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Erin. Sandy made the motion and Erin seconded. Any discussion amongst commissioners?
I do have just a point, quick point to raise. Are you okay with a pervious driveway or semi-pervious driveway? Because they just stated it's going to be a condition of approval. So it kind of bears your weighing in on that. Huh? Then yes, okay. If we're going to condition something that wasn't part of a proposal or can't be explained, it's important that you agree to that condition. Thank you.
Voting. Sandy?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Marjorie? Erin?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Good luck.
See the after photos of that one. Right?
What?
Want to see the after photos of that one. The photos are crazy.
I'll try to send some in.
Yeah, I'd love to see it.
Now calling the the 6:54 hearing for 133 Ninigret Ave, Kelly Homes. This is a proposed replacement of.
Hold on, Alex, the next one is 651, 37.
Amy Brown.
Sorry. I have too many papers.
You wish.
There we go. The 651 hearing, this is 37 Amy Brown Road. with Brian Anderson. This is a proposed raise and replace and maintain of a single-family dwelling with detached garage, appurtenances, new septic system, new elevated boardwalk, float and ramp. Representative is Cape and Islands Engineering. This is continued from 3/7. Good evening.
Good evening, Chuck Rowland, Cape and Islands Engineering. I'm a professional engineer, and this, I can't remember exact date, but this is a continuance. Before I move forward, I just wanted to make sure I have a quorum.
Yes.
Okay. I couldn't remember if you had been there. It was kind of a small room, and it was a different layout, so.
I was not there that evening, but
So
it's okay.
as far, say it again?
Yeah, we have a quorum.
So 3 is a quorum?
No, 4 is a quorum.
So were you there as well?
No.
So did someone?
It's only been one, it's been open once?
Yes. And so did someone mull it in? I just want to make sure, if you're saying we have a quorum, then we have a quorum.
What's the issue?
I don't know what the issue is.
I just want to make sure that.
If the hearing hasn't been closed yet, if the public hearing hasn't been closed yet, then Sarah is eligible to weigh in and vote, as long as the public hearing is open. You don't need the Mullen rule if the public hearing is open.
Okay.
So you can proceed.
Sounds good. So a few things were raised at the last meeting. Specifically, one of them was the issue that the proposed structure is located in the NHESP. We got feedback from Brendan, the Chapter 91 reviewer, and he has agreed as well, as I think your chair was included in some of these emails, as well as Drew, that it is allowed under the NHESP. I have an email, a letter from Attorney Watsky, confirming that that is also his opinion.
Chuck, just a point of clarification, do you mean ACEC instead of NHESP?
Yes, ACEC. It's been a long day.
Let's all just agree to say the whole thing, could we?
Yeah, Area of Critical Environmental Concern. This is what ACEC stands for.
Secondly, the other issue was the upland area. Additional trees have been added to the buffer to replace trees disturbed in the construction of the proposed garage. The trees include 2 birch trees in the same general location as the shed along the north property line, additionally to 3 holly trees in the 50-foot buffer to the bank on the north side. And then we will be narrowing the path to 4 feet with native bushes to include low bush blueberry, black huckleberry, purple flowering raspberry, and pasture rose. Those notes are included in the, we'll just be using the same mitigation planting notes. So that added path, narrowing of that pathway adds about another 150 square feet of native planting to this project. So unless you guys want me to kind of run through any more of these letters that we submitted, I'm happy to take any questions.
Sure. Drew, do you have anything else you wanted to add?
Well, I just wanted to ask Sarah, do you want a recap of kind of what the overall proposal is here for Chuck to kind of run through for your benefit?
That'd be wonderful. If we keep it brief, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Sure. So we have an old structure. It's kind of cool, as you see on the screen there, geodesic dome structure. Unfortunately, it is dry rotted, and it was built during a time that kind of modern day construction standards were not implemented. So the structure is in disrepair, but the foundation is in good shape. So it's 14-inch foundation, which is almost twice as big as 14-inch foundation, which is about twice as big as a normal foundation nowadays. So we're going to keep that existing footprint, add a box out on the landward side. We're proposing a garage, mostly outside the 100-foot buffer. Add some native plantings along the bank, as well as trees along the north side in the buffer zone area. Upgrade the septic to an IA system. And then if we switch over to the plan view, we have an existing boardwalk, ramp, and float, and we're going to be proposing an elevated structure with grading, as well as clearance over the salt marsh, so that way we get the structure off of the actual salt marsh and we'll have light penetration. With that, I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to the commissioners. Are there any questions?
I have questions with the wildlife habitat issues involved with this. Not the house part of it is fine, as far as I'm concerned, anyway. I just have issues with, there's an osprey nest stand right at the end of where the existing float is, and I wondered how.
Sure. So that was actually brought up by the Natural Resource Director. Let's see here. I just want to make sure. Osprey nests high up in the trees, nesting in platforms at least 20 feet above the ground. They're very tolerant to people and work activities. They're known to rest on telephone poles at the edge of busy roads, and the proposed elevated boardwalk and float will not provide nesting habitat for osprey. No impact to the osprey. Other birds of prey are anticipated to occur as a result of this project. And I consulted with our senior wetlands scientist on that. I mean, you see them sitting right next to major roadways. You see them on power lines. We don't foresee the boardwalk causing any impact to the birds.
Sandy, where's the osprey nest now?
Right at the end of the.
Here's a photograph of it.
Lower right photo.
Yeah.
Marjorie.
There it is.
Yep.
Oh, there he is.
There's a nice walk out there.
So it is located, I think, on the other side of kind of that mosquito ditch, or
And is he
just the
going to
open
stay
area.
there? Or is that going to be disturbed?
We're not touching the osprey. No.
Don't touch.
Can I ask if the
Words to live by.
Yes.
the seasonality of the work is going to be in consideration of the nesting times for the osprey?
I think we'd be amenable to conditioning that. We weren't planning on. We haven't come up with a schedule as to when to build it, but to build it, we're happy to work around the osprey.
I imagine the construction might be a disturbance.
You see them sitting, resting in their nests, like right next to our road work on major roads. I don't think it's going to be an impact, but for the sake of permitting, and if it makes this commission feel better, we're happy to work with you guys.
Marjorie, do you have anything?
No, the osprey were my thing, but I was counting on Sandra, and she did come through to defend it. Yeah, no, I'm good.
Good. I'm struggling with some boards on the marsh being considered a grandfathered structure. How can it be grandfathered if it was an illegal structure to begin with that was never permitted per the town's regs and rules?
It wasn't. It was determined to not be illegal because the cutoff date, Chuck, I believe, is 1990, November 11th, 1990. So in conference with Chapter 91, and this is backed up by an attorney's letter accompanying this application, the existing structure is considered grandfathered by evidence presented. I believe it was an environmental impact or environmental notification form that was filed prior to that 1990 cutoff date that provided evidence that this structure existed prior to that cutoff date. Therefore, Chapter 91 considers this structure to be eligible for permitting. And it also precedes the establishment of Mashpee's Chapter 172 bylaw, so there was no jurisdiction locally for this structure. So the evidence.
What was the date of the ACEC being?
The cutoff is November 11th, 1990 for structures in an ACEC designated area, and this more than qualifies to be established prior to that date. It's all been vetted out with Chapter 91. They have concurred that this is a legal structure. I don't know if we can vet it out any more than it already has been.
There was also a letter from a previous harbor master, town harbor master, saying that he used the structure in 82 or something like that, which was submitted.
I just don't get how you go from boards laying on the marsh to then getting a full-blown dock and pier in an area of critical environmental concern, and that building the dock wouldn't have more of an impact on that. And I think you were saying natural heritage because it is also within a natural heritage area. Has natural heritage weighed in on this? Because it's roseate tern nesting area.
Sorry, I don't believe, I think it is just ACEC, and I don't believe it's mapped as NHESP.
Unless I'm getting my notes mixed up. It's possible.
To my knowledge, it's just area of critical planning concern, but
The maps for both the town and APCC have it as a foraging area for the roseate tern.
What are you reading from?
My notes.
Your notes, oh. Your notes
Yeah.
are better.
Did you see the natural heritage overlay on GIS?
Yeah, isn't that where it goes?
I'm asking if that's what you...
Yeah.
So you checked GIS to see that the natural heritage has overlay in this area?
Yes, and there are 13 things tonight, so it's entirely possible that I'm mixing it up, but that's
I'm
what.
checking GIS
That's what
now.
my notes have.
so you are correct. It is mapped NHESP, and I don't have the NHESP letter or application with me, if that was the case. I can.
So we don't have anything back from Natural Heritage yet on this?
No, they have by law 30 days to comment after receipt of an application. So, but as of right now, there is no comments from Natural Heritage.
You submitted it to them?
I'm almost positive, and I'm happy to check our records as soon as I get back to the office tomorrow, but yeah.
Okay.
If I could just make one more comment in regards to the concern about the existing structure compared to what's proposed. The damage that's being experienced to the salt marsh with the current structure, which is at grade with the salt marsh, so therefore it's smothering salt marsh vegetation in its current footprint, to be replaced by an elevated walkway a foot less wide than what we would require with through-flow decking throughout the entire footprint is vastly superior to what exists today.
Sure, it's
and will
superior,
alleviate
but-
the impacts of what is currently existing today.
Sure, and arguably what's existing there today should have been, the homeowner should have been addressed that boards on the marsh is not an acceptable structure, and it could have been an enforcement order prior to this. So yes, it would be beneficial for it to be a raised pier over what's there currently, but what's there currently is not something, I mean, it's pretty hard to consider boards placed on the marsh to walk over a legal structure.
It's already been vetted out as such, and it's
Okay,
backed up
thank
by
you.
an attorney.
Thank you. Any other comments from commissioners?
Not for me. This is the notice of intent. That's where we're at now, so.
Okay. Are there any comments from the public? Okay. Hearing none, I will entertain either a motion, further discussion, whatever you've got.
I would just say, I don't want to make the motion, so I'll defer to Sandy if you want to make the motion, but I just want to make sure, I think your point that was confirmed left me feeling like, are there other results or other comments that we're looking to get back before you want this to go through as an official motion? You were right, your notes were right.
Right. We could condition it pending.
I just wanted to, remind everyone then.
Right, pending natural heritage.
Exactly. Just add that language in. Sandy, are you going to make the motion?
I'm trying. Writing.
Thanks, Marge.
Madam Chairman, I'll make a motion for 37 Amy Brown Road, Byron W. Anderson, for close and issue with condition of submission of a signed 2-year mitigation monitoring and maintenance contract between the property owner and a qualified professional landscaper, horticulturist, or wetland consultant. Additional condition of submission of detailed construction methodology, and that all work must be carried out by a qualified and experienced marine contractor with documentation of experience to be provided to the Conservation Department prior to construction, and also pending a National Heritage report.
Did you want to condition that all work be done outside of osprey nesting season?
Yes, and that all work be done outside of osprey nesting season. Thank you, that was on the other.
That leaves you 3 days in the year.
Yeah, I hope we have a little bit more than that.
We have a motion made.
I'm sorry.
Second.
Thank you, Erin. Voting, Sandy,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Marjorie,
Yes.
Erin,
Yes.
and I'm a no.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you.
Now, what are we on?
654.
Just making sure.
Now we're there.
Now we're there. Okay. Now calling the 654 hearing for 133 Ninigret Ave, Kelly Homes, proposed replacement of failed leach pit with new Title V compliant system. Representative is Shea Environmental Services. Good evening.
Hi, my name is Carmen Shea, Shea Environmental Services. I'm here representing Kelly Homes for the replacement of a failed septic system with the new Title V compliance system, including an IA technology. The existing failed system is not only considerably closer to the wetlands associated with Cataquin Pond, it's failed in partially on another lot, which is still owned by Kelly Homes, but it's the fact that it's not on the lot it's supposed to be served. So the new system is a 1,500-gallon tank that is proposed 119 feet away from wetlands with a Sledgehammer S46 IA unit, which will reduce nitrogen and phosphorus, which will be beneficial to the pond. And the SAS, which is 5 LC6 chambers with stone, with only a 1-foot profile in this case, so that we have maximum separation of groundwater. Although we did not hit groundwater at 11 feet, we still wanted to try to get as much elevation as possible. And so we lengthened the system slightly and made the profile a little less deep. And it is 142 feet from associated wetlands and is pushed pretty much the maximum that I could without encroaching up a bank that approaches Ninigret Avenue, making it a lot more difficult to install the system. So I think it's sited in the best place possible. All the work is in somewhat of a cleared lawn area, and will be revegetated as such. And I think it's a vast improvement from where we are now. There is no increase in flow proposed, and Board of Health has approved this and permitted it.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions from the commissioners? Do you have to remove any trees?
No.
That's the location, right?
I'm sorry?
Up there, that's the location of the?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was looking down. Yeah, so it's in pretty much the lawn area there. It's pushed probably to the edge of, if you're looking, to the right-hand property line there, it's pushed probably close to the edge of where, the tree line would start, but that's, I try to, like I say, get the maximum distance and sort of make it as easy as possible to still install.
Great. Any other comments or questions from commissioners? Drew, this is pretty straightforward. I don't
have anything to add.
Is there anybody here from the audience that has any questions or comments? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion. This is an RDA.
Do you want some relief?
Sure.
Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion on 133 Ninigret Ave, Kelly Holmes, on a negative determination on her RDA.
Perfect.
You didn't have to correct me one?
No.
Second.
First Marjorie and second by Aaron. Motion made and seconded. Any discussion amongst commissioners? It's pretty straightforward. Voting, Sandy?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes, ma'am.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I feel like
Thank
I was
you.
the easiest one so far.
See, there you go.
All right, have a great
Careful.
night.
Don't jinx yourself.
I would love for some of the following ones to be that quick.
I know.
We'll see. Now calling the 6:57 hearing for 138 Summersea Road. Karen Linhan, trustee, from the Karen Linhan Revocable Trust. This is an amended order of conditions for proposed hardscape improvements, including driveways and walkways. The representative is the Artistic Grounds. Sorry.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm Dustin Wolf with Artistic Grounds. I'm representing Karen Linhan. And we're seeking an amendment to the order of conditions. There was a septic system that was installed. There's an NOI in place for that. What we're looking to do is just repair and replace what was removed for that septic installation. The one upgrade that was requested is that we switch from a gravel driveway on the upper area and the lower area to a permeable paver. So we intend to install gravel drainage underneath those driveways, and we intend to use an easy joint material that will leach water through the joints of the pavers for both the upper and lower driveway. The tanks and septic installation, there's tanks down below with a pump system that pumps up to a leach field on the circular driveway you see up in the top sort of north corner there. So it's a pretty extensive system. The existing stairs and walkways that you see there were taken out and they need to be replaced, along with the retaining wall at the bottom, which is actually already part of the notice of intent. They just want to we'll add a footing to that per the notice, and then reinstall that lower retaining wall and the stairs and steps that lead from the upper driveway to the lower driveway. And then obviously there's some mitigation and other plantings we need to do because most of the front yard was disturbed with the septic system installation. The other request of the homeowner is adjacent the fire pit in the back of the property right there. That has gone into disrepair, and so it's basically a lot of weeds and a little bit of beach grass left in there, but it's in disrepair. So we were going to go in by hand and remove that and then reinstall new native species in that area to revegetate that back to native standard, yeah.
Thank you. Are there any, Drew, do you have anything else you want to add on top of that?
No, I think it's, all the points were hit. If anyone had any questions about that area, what I had been talking with Dustin leading up to this application, that it's just the existing vegetation in that called out area on the, can you put the plan back up for a second? It really contains vegetation that's not really conducive to coastal bank. Beach grass grows in, eroding coastal bank areas and coastal dunes. It's not really conducive to a vegetated coastal bank like this one. So I think it makes sense to swap it out with more woody vegetation than beach grass and then the weeds, and just fill it in and make it a little more robust to increase the integrity of the bank in that area. So no other comments. And all the proposed hardscaping is just replacing what was once there with new material. There's no change in footprint overall.
No change in footprint. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that. Are there any questions from commissioners? Is there anyone from the audience here for this item? Seeing no one, I will entertain a motion if there is one.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion for 138 Summersea Road. Karen Linehan, trustee, for approval of the amended order request.
Second.
Perfect. First Sandy, second Marjorie. Any discussion? No voting. Sandy?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. That one was pretty fast, too.
Thank you.
Good.
Appreciate it.
Nicely done.
We got 3 left?
No idea.
We're doing it.
Plus mine.
Oh, 4,
Mine's quick.
because we skipped yours. All right.
It's a good thing.
Now
We're going
calling.
back?
Well, we do have to go back to one at one point, but we'll do that at the
We'll
end.
just keep going.
Yes.
Yeah, that's my project.
That's your what?
Project.
Now, hearing the 7 o'clock hearing item, 84 Punkhorn Point Road, Robert Allen Wolp and Michelle Wolp, proposed pool and patio expansion, home additions, fence, hardscaping, and mitigation. Representative is Cape and Islands Engineering.
Good evening, Raul Lizardi from Cape and Islands Engineering, representing the applicant and property owners for this notice of intent application. Also in the audience is Mario LeBlanc, the landscape architect for this project. The property, as described, is for proposed site improvements. The main improvement for this notice of intent is pool improvement, which is related to patios and a pool cabana. But the smaller portions of the project include a couple of additions to the house. There's an addition to the right wing of the house and to the back of the house. Both of those 2 additions are within contained areas of existing decks. So in terms of structures, they're not increasing structure. They're just replacing portion of the deck with living space for the house. That part of the house is the kitchen. The property owners are moving away from their current resident, which is in, if I get it correctly, Walpole. So they're moving from Walpole to move and live here permanently. So they want to make the improvements to this property for year-round residency. I believe they already changed their address to this address. So that's the main improvements for the kitchen area of the house. The outdoors, what they want to improve is the pool area. The family also has a couple of dogs. So one part of the improvements to the pool area is the pool fencing enclosure, which includes a portion of the rear lawn yard to be used for the dogs to roam around without making their way out into the waters or getting lost somewhere out there. Another change to this project, which is a minor change, a good portion of the existing lawn is going to be removed and replaced with one of those fake turf for putting green. The main improvement by doing that is the reduction in lawn areas and the need for fertilizer. Another change to the pool area is reduction of pool patio closest to the wetland resources, which is salt marsh and land under the ocean. but increasing patio areas on the opposite side of the pool to increase patio, to also build a pool cabana, an outdoor kitchen, and some walkways and sitting walls for this pool redevelopment. The area is just barely at the edge of the AE flood zone. It is not the coastal flood zone LIMWA, or limit of moderate wave action. It's outside of that designation. And all the work will also include replacement of the existing landscaping with new landscaping, increased landscaping around the property, and to offset all the increases in impervious surfaces, the applicant is proposing to do 650 square feet of native mitigation plantings as closest to the wetland and the existing vegetation. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Drew, I will go to you to add on any of your thoughts to this one.
Sure. So first, I just want to address that the delineations done, the surveying indicated there was a fragmented, I think, coastal bank. So it's important to point out that this coastal bank is a landform bank that was created by man-made conditions when the lot was initially graded, when the house was first established on this lot. If you've been out to the site and looked at the existing conditions, the coastal bank is essentially lawn. So as far as the value of that coastal bank, it doesn't really serve much of a value in terms of a vertical buffer to storm damage, and it is most definitely not a sediment source for downdrift coastal beaches, dunes, and banks. So it's just important to point out that the coastal bank that's delineated on this site is a result of man-made activities. It is not a natural coastal bank. So when it comes to setbacks from resource areas, the main setback that should be focused on is a setback from salt marsh, not the coastal bank. So the proposed home additions, as Raul had stated, are within areas of existing and legal structures. Proposed hardscape changes will have runoff directed to catch basins and drains. No grading changes proposed, thus no alteration of existing topography within the 100-year floodplain, so there won't be any alteration of flood patterns as a result of what's being proposed. The proposed cabana and outdoor kitchen, fencing, patios, and putting green are proposed to be constructed in a manner that will not result in diversion of floodwaters. All of the proposed work, with the exception of portions of the fence, are between the 75 and 150-foot section of the wetland buffer zone. The entire area of proposed activities is previously and legally altered with existing lawn areas, pool, patio, and associated hardscaping. Mitigation proposed on a 2-to-1 ratio to enhance areas of the buffer zone closest to the delineated edge of wetland. Project as proposed will not result in diversion of floodwaters or loss of flood storage capacity, as all proposed structures are either pervious, semi-pervious, or allow for flow-through of floodwaters relatively unimpeded. No grading changes, no impacts to bordering vegetated wetlands or salt marsh. Buffer zone will be enhanced with mitigation plantings. One of the suggestions that I have, Raul, because you do have a section of fence that's in the velocity zone, is that the fence be a chain link fence and not a solid structure, because I don't believe that a solid structure will hold up to velocity zone forces when it comes to flooding events.
Mary LeBlanc Landscape Design. The fence will be similar to the existing fence, which is black aluminum with spacing between the vertical pickets of about 4 inches on center.
Do you feel that's going to hold up to velocity zone impacts?
Well, probably similar to chain link.
Okay.
Probably similar to chain link.
There was a question brought up about how the fence installation is going to meet velocity zone standards, and there really isn't much information in the narrative to describe that. So if you have the opportunity to explain further how that's going to hold up in the event of a velocity flood event.
Sure. So when we install the fence post, they can be installed in concrete footings. There's also some other special footings that some fence vendors like Walpole has that add an extra footing below the post. That would be the best approach, is actually putting them in concrete.
And what about clearance underneath for wildlife passage?
So typically, we're 4 to 6 inches below. And then, of course, the rodents are getting through, the rabbits are getting through.
Okay.
They can dig under.
Okay.
What kind of dogs are they keeping in?
Yeah, hopefully they're not small dogs.
Wheaten terriers.
No, they are small dogs.
How would they be kept in with a fence that has 6 inches to the ground?
Oh, they're bigger than that. I mean, if they're active diggers, any dog can get under, but if you're out in your yard and you're there and they're not actively digging, they're typically not.
Okay. Okay.
And Raul, did you receive the comments from Matthew Haney in regards to this? He just submitted them today. I don't know if you were made aware of that or not.
So I knew the neighbor contacted, or the applicant contacted the neighbor and reviewed his concerns with the project.
Yep.
And passed the information along to me. No specific on what the objection is that made it to my side, other than I believe he was going to either be here, or I suppose he furnished a letter to the commission, but I have not seen it.
Yeah, it's a nice 12-page letter that was submitted at the last 11th hour. I mean, if I may, Alex, just to kind of summarize.
Sure.
So he brings up numerous objections to the property, to the proposal, rather. The first ones are in relation.
And I don't know if we need, let's have our discussion first, I
Yeah,
think.
that's fine.
We can ask our questions first and get clarification, and then if there's anything that we don't address that's still in that, we can talk about it, but it is 12 pages long. So I would rather go to commissioners first for
You're
comment.
going to be very sad to hear from me, because I was going to ask about all of those pages. Can I just say, they came late, and I think it's fairly difficult for 6 busy commissioners to read them. But I do.
Of course.
I was looking forward to Drew giving us some response on, I would say that there are probably, I'm guessing, 20 chapters and verses from the Massachusetts general laws and from the bylaws and that allege that this project violates them, and that we should, as a commission, challenge much of that. And it was just so laborious. I didn't find that it was something that the commission could do, and Drew nicely offered to be, as his job, to know this stuff and to see what is.
Sure, so I guess let's just get through our concerns first, and then we can.
Well, I bet everybody's concerned about that, but if you want to go through the others first, that's great.
Sure. Sarah, do you have anything you want to ask about?
I do, actually. I have just 2 questions. So with the proposed 650 square feet of mitigation plantings, can you speak to the total square footage of?
I hate to be repeating myself. but
I'm
I can't
sorry.
hear a damn
I'm
thing
short. I'll
Pull it closer.
You're very soft-spoken. It's not you. It's just that.
How about that? Is that any better? Oh, thank you very much. No, I thank you for the note. Is there an estimate of the total square footage of increased footprint here to compare to that 650 square feet of mitigation plantings in the plan?
So yeah, we have many numbers on the plans to look
Sure.
at. So overall, there's proposed development that is within the buffer zone and proposed development outside of the buffer zone. So the total development increase. Sorry, I got new glasses and I'm getting used to my prescription.
They look very nice.
Thank you. So there's proposed development in land subject to coastal stone floor, which is 3,005 square feet. Proposed existing pool, I'm sorry.
I don't know if mine are any better.
I think it's best to just look at the mitigation calculations. Within the 150-foot buffer zone, there's 516 square foot increase in development. And for that, we're compensating with 650 square foot of native mitigation plantings, as shown on the green area. The sections that are outside of the 150-foot buffer zone, we did not include in the calculations for mitigation. But a portion of it, which doesn't coincide with the 150-foot buffer, is in the flood zone. And then a portion of it is outside of the flood zone. But these different areas kind of crisscross, but they're not the same.
Okay, thank you. And then I had a question just about the landscaping plan, in particular, something that, that I noted when you were giving your overview was the putting green and keeping that nice and shamrock green right next to the water. Can you speak to the landscaping plan for?
So the putting green is synthetic, so it's not a seeding of grass.
Oh, I see. So
It's synthetic.
plastic?
So it's plastic.
So it's plastic, yes.
It's plastic. Okay.
Yeah, I have a comment about that too, Raul. You said that it's a reduction of lawn area and less fertilizer. There should not be fertilizer used in this area anyway. So that is a little egregious. I have a problem with the putting green, honestly. I don't see how we can permit tying down plastic to the ground and affixing it. The measurements aren't even on here, but within 75 feet of the salt marsh.
It's 800 square feet in terms of overall dimension.
And the location
Surface
is
area.
outside of the 75-foot buffer to the salt marsh. It's between the 75 and the 150.
Yeah, and it's entirely in the flood zone.
It is.
Yeah. I mean, you're putting a bunch of plastic in the flood zone.
I mean, I know that the putting green is something that the applicant doesn't want the project to be held off with. So if the rest of the commission feel that the putting green, the synthetic putting green is egregious, I already talked to the applicant and he's okay with taking that off the table if it's a condition that the commissioners want to adopt.
Yeah, either that or moving it completely out of the 150-foot buffer, further out and into the X zone. But I don't know if the property would allow itself to have it completely moved out. But yeah, the putting green the synthetic doesn't work for me.
How far back is it?
I mean, it's fully within the AE zone.
Oh, well,
And it's 75 feet. It's fully within the 150-foot buffer. It's at 75 feet from the salt marsh. Are there other questions or comments from commissioners?
I'd almost rather see the actual lawn go away, keep the putting green, and then put plantings where there's grass. You know what I mean? So get rid of real grass, put in some plantings, and then let them keep the plastic that doesn't require fertilizer. I don't know, just as a thought.
So if I add to that, that will be just keeping what's there and just plucking a hole for
That doesn't make sense.
for practicing. So it is currently lawn. But the applicant is okay if the commissioners between themselves want to make it a condition that the putting green is to be removed from the application. We agree to it.
Or outside the 150.
Right, if it's outside of jurisdiction, then we don't have to come
yeah.
back.
do you have any objections to that, Alex?
I don't. I mean, I'm curious about the calculation of mitigation also. I don't know how you only got 650 square feet. I feel like with the alterations happening, it should be more than that, but because it's all either in land subject to coastal storm flowage or within the buffer to it.
Right, the mitigation calculations are not calculated for the land subject to coastal storm flowage.
Have we before? Have we before
Hope we what?
calculated mitigation plantings for land subject to coastal storm flowage?
If there is natural vegetation being altered as a result, yes, but in the absence of that, no.
But in the creation of footprint, it doesn't matter. That, like, you have a
It's-
pervious to
You're
non-pervious area.
from my recollection, from what Paul had ruled on in previous alterations within land subject to coastal storm flow, that he said it would be a minimum of 2-to-1 ratio for
Right.
mitigation square footage proposed, 2-to-1 mitigation ratio in exchange for that.
And that's what this is.
Raul?
This is all 2-to-1?
No, so this calculation was based on 1-to-1. The calculations table that we had at the time was the 5-foot intervals between the 0 to 75 feet, and then at the time, the calculations we had was the 1-to-1 from the 75 to 150. I understand that there's a new number on a more recent table that I didn't have when I put this application together. But touching back on the amount of natural vegetated area, the land on this property that is subject to land subject to coastal storm flowage is 41,296 square feet. And there's more than 17,000 square feet of naturally vegetated area within that land subject to coastal storm flowage that represents roughly 41%
Right,
of
we're
that
not
land.
talking
So-
about like the lot percentages, though. I think we're talking about a 2-to-1 mitigation planting for the footprint in the flood zone. I mean, you have the space for it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So right now, we're proposing 650 square feet. The 2-to-1 of the 516 will be 1,032 square feet. So what that means, we're short by some roughly 400 square feet.
Yeah.
We can agree to continue to plant some of the lawn areas to attain that 1,032 square feet.
Yeah, so I mean, we can condition that for tonight to approve it. It would have to be though closer to the resource area. It wouldn't just be like ornamental beds by the
Right,
pool.
no, it would actually be a continuation of the existing mitigation he has there, heading towards the boardwalk, towards the dock, yep. in
Okay,
there.
and the
Mhm.
existing vegetation does not count towards that, obviously, so the
right.
bushes that are there don't
Right.
count.
Although some of,
start.
yeah, anything ornamental, right. Yep.
Okay. Okay, so we can condition, we would be looking at
A 2-to-1 calculation.
1,032, yeah.
Whatever your 2-to-1 calculation is.
Can I ask a possibly very silly question?
Yeah.
As the new person in the room, do we have the capacity to condition just nutrient management of this dog run? Making sure that the waste gets picked up and isn't just sitting there?
That's a good question, I don't know, we've never done that.
That would be
The only
hard to
thing I can,
monitor.
if I may,
That would be hard to monitor.
given the amount of enforcement duties we're charged with on multiple projects,
Fair.
something like that is just not feasible, just in total disclosure.
No, that's totally fair.
Want to
I had to ask.
Yeah.
No, I had to ask.
Now, in the mitigation areas, I think I see some Japanese honeysuckle that's been growing in the area. Are they open to removing that? And I don't mean the ones that are small, I mean the ones that are very big, that have a decent-sized trunk of about 1 inch to greater. Would they be into removing that and just restoring those to get them out of there?
Yep.
Okay.
That would be a much preferable form of mitigation,
Yes.
because it's a very aggressive invasive species, as I'm sure you know, Mary.
Yes, so are you suggesting that that's part of the mitigation or in addition to?
That would be part of, I would recommend part of the mitigation, because I think that's a priority with that type of invasive that spreads very rapidly and overtakes native vegetation.
I only say that because the Japanese honeysuckle is very, very aggressive on coastal areas.
Yeah.
So,
Is it in previous mitigation areas?
So you can actually see it right here. The reason I took the picture here is because it is the only, invasives will leaf out first. So you can see here, it's the only one with green little tiny leaves coming out on it.
Is it in previous mitigation area?
Previous?
Or like what, where,
It is
It's
right.
part of a
it's-
landscape scheme that was
You can see right here,
established when the
orange
house was
flags.
established.
is it an area that we asked to be mitigation plantings when we approved the building of the house? Because they would need to maintain that area without the invasives anyway.
No,
So it
it's-
would be in
it's-
addition to the mitigation that we're asking for, is why I'm asking.
I don't know.
What
I
was
wasn't
the
even-
orig- the
I wasn't even
original-
the agent when this house was permitted, so.
Was the original project done in 2000 and?
Yeah, I honestly don't know
and
the answer
then-
to that.
Yeah, it's a large area out there that,
Yeah.
Right, so if it was,
so not sure how much was mitigation where this is all in part of the natural.
If it could be conditioned in this form, the additional 400 square foot of mitigation required, if done in such a way that invasive removal is proposed, that invasive removal is not an area that previously was required to be mitigation plantings. So if it was previously required by any other permit, which I don't think it was, then we can't count that area.
that's what, I don't want that to happen.
Okay.
Like, if the naturally vegetated area that's there is there because it was previous mitigation, I don't want it to count towards this mitigation.
Understood.
I want to keep that vegetation.
Right.
Okay. I don't know where that leaves us with
No.
conditions. We're at
You
a
lost me.
few.
I'm not either.
Okay.
I know the client is happy to remove invasives, so
Okay.
we're good with that.
Great.
In the interest of moving forward, would this be a good place to get just the cliff notes of the abutter
Yeah.
letter?
The abutter letter, I don't know that the abutter, what else was in there of major concern aside from
There
what
were
we
just
talked
so
about?
many, excuse me, you caught me in a cookie moment. I think there were just so many that it would be good to have Drew, just, and particularly if they're here tonight, I don't know if they're here, but.
It's all related to zoning.
Yeah, most of it is
The
related to zoning.
concerns
I mean,
aren't all entirely us. It's talking about other,
Yeah, it's cherry picking provisions in the bylaw that require issuance of permits from other departments and cross jurisdiction.
Right.
Something that, is really not necessary and should certainly not hold up this application. The majority of what's in here is just kind of throwing things against the wall and hoping they stick. So, it gets into coastal banks. I just described the value or lack thereof of the coastal bank, and he's insisting the setback and mitigation should be based on setback to coastal bank. Getting into other stuff about other resource areas. The bottom line here is that, particularly if the putting green's going to be removed,
Yeah.
which I'm fine with, then none of this really has any merit as it applies to your jurisdiction. And the whole getting other permits secured before you render a decision, that's your discretion. I really feel that that's just a stall and delay tactic more than anything else. Nobody's getting away with anything as far as skirting regulations from other boards. So I consider that to be relatively meaningless.
Also, it's good, though, that that's in the record.
Yeah.
That it's been acknowledged,
Yeah.
doesn't apply.
Yeah.
great. Any other questions from commissioners? Is anybody here from the public to speak on this? Yeah, Raul.
So I just wanted to make it into the record that the file for the ZBA application has been done.
Okay.
So
Great.
Perfect.
Yay.
All right, I will entertain a motion with a lot of
I don't,
conditions that we need to hash out. So
those conditions
we're
again.
looking at the 1,032 square feet of mitigation plantings to be worked out with staff. The removal of the putting green. And removal of invasives.
Didn't we say the
but-
removal or moving it so many feet away?
Yeah, I mean, if it's outside of our jurisdiction, then it's outside, so,
But does that have to be part of the conditioning?
I don't think so.
No.
No, if they move it out, we have nothing to do with it, yeah.
I'm good.
All right, Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to close an issue for 84 Punk Horn Point Road, and with the condition of 1,322 square feet of mitigation.
32. 1032. Yeah. 1,032 square feet, I think.
Oh, I thought you said 322.
I don't know. What is it?
1,032 square feet.
Thank you.
1,032
Yes.
square feet.
Yes.
Of mitigation to be worked out with the staff, removal of invasive species, and removal of the putting green.
Can I add in, just because I wrote it in my comments, the submission of a 2-year mitigation
Oh,
monitoring
sorry.
agreement?
There's so much of it. Yes. What Drew said.
Well,
And the
you can't, I'm not a commissioner, you have to,
Okay.
I'm sorry, you have to verbalize.
With, was it 2-year?
Yeah.
With the contract, 2-year mitigation monitoring and maintenance contract between the property owner and a qualified professional landscaper, horticulturist, or wetland consultant.
Great. Thank you. Sandy? Motion made
Second.
and seconded. Thank you, Erin. Any other discussion amongst commissioners? Hearing none. Voting, Sandy?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Erin?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, guys. We're getting there. We have 2 left. We can do it.
One more, I know.
Now calling the 7:03 hearing for 279 Matamascoy Road, CS Realty Trust, proposed raise and replace of existing single-family home, proposed garage, shed, landscaping, walkway to existing dock, and mitigation plantings. Representatives is Colley Site Services LLC. This is continued from January 11th, March 7th, and March 21st. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Brian Wall. I'm an attorney. I have an office in Sandwich, and I'm representing the applicants tonight. Together with me is John Ryle from Colley Site Services, Beatrice Whaler from Whaler Landscaping, and Drew, if you might want to check, we're also having Stan Humphreys from ECR. He's supposed to be signed in by Zoom. He submitted a letter. So I realize this project has been before you twice, and I'm not going to go over everything, but just to refresh memories, if I may, I'm representing the applicant, Patrick and Vanessa Dale, and they are the owners of the property at 279 Monomoskoy Road. The lot is a 16,000 square foot lot, and it's improved by a small 936 square foot, single-story, single-family dwelling with 3 bedrooms, and there's also a shed on the property. According to Mashpee's assessing records, the house was constructed in or about 1960. The property fronts on Hamlin Pond, and at that frontage, there's an existing seawall and there's an existing dock. The property is highly disturbed, I would argue, and it has lawn extending all the way to the edge of the seawall. The property is located in land subject to coastal storm flowage, as well and adjacent to land under the ocean, and the existing dwelling is not flood compliant. What the applicants are proposing to do is to raise the existing dwelling and construct a new dwelling with the same number of bedrooms. They also seek to raise the existing shed and construct a new garage barn in the front yard. There have been changes made, and I see the staff has put up the revised plan since the last hearing. John Ryle is here to discuss any of the details, but I'm just going to hit the highlights. First of all, the house has been pulled back farther from the wetland than it was previously. The raised patio that was on the last plan has been eliminated, and the stairs from that patio have been eliminated. The barn has been shifted so that it's moved farther away from the resource. The mitigation plantings have been recalculated accordingly. According to the calculations, 4,110 square feet are required, 4,290 are proposed, and there's also an additional 1,488 square feet of restoration, including invasive species and invasive management for that amount. When I said the new dwelling is set back farther, the existing dwelling is 26.2 feet from the seawall. The proposed dwelling will now be set back 31.3 feet at its closest point. The new structure, obviously being in land subject to coastal storm flowage, will be elevated above the floodplain. The foundation will have flood vents to allow floodwaters to pass through, so no hydrostatic pressure will develop. Very significantly, the applicant is proposing to have the surface inside the foundation not made of concrete, but instead having an area of gravel so that the water that does get in there in a flood event can infiltrate into the ground. The septic system is proposing to be upgraded to a denitrifying system, but also with pressure dosing, which is above and beyond what is required by the regulations. The barn is detached so that it will allow floodwaters to move around the house to the barn, and the barn also has flood vents in its foundation. I would suggest that the project represents a substantial improvement over existing conditions and is worthy of your approval. But before I yield, I want to talk about two matters under Regulation 25, because I know that they came up in past hearings, and I happened to be at the Commission's last meeting 2 weeks ago, and I had a similar project also on Mashpee, and these issues came up, so I want to briefly talk about them. There was discussion at the last hearing regarding 25C5, which is a regulation that says that in areas where there can be expected to have 2 to 3 foot waves, that vertical walls in those areas are prohibited. And we suggest to you that that regulation is not applicable in this instance for the following reasons. And I think the Commission knows this, that a velocity zone is defined as an area where waves 3 feet or higher are expected in a severe storm event. And this is not in a velocity zone, this is in a flood zone known as an AE zone. And the AE zone is subdivided into 2 different categories. One is called the coastal AE zone, which is adjacent to the V zone. And that area is expected to have what's called moderate wave action, or sometimes shortened as MOWA. And in the moderate wave action area, it's to have expected 1.5 to 3 feet. So less than velocity zone, but still 1.5 to 3. And that language, the language of your regulation closely tracks this. So your regulation says 2 to 3 feet, and the MOWA area is 1.5 to 3. There's a large coincidence there. Furthermore, the second category of AE zones is what's called minimal wave action, or otherwise known as MIWA, and that is an area that is expected to have less than 1.5 feet in a storm event. These areas are mapped on FEMA maps. We submitted a letter from Stan Humphreys, who's a coastal geologist from ECR in Plymouth, and he has attached the map to his letter. And this property is in the MIWA area, so the waves expected in a storm event are 1.5 or less. It is not in an area of moderate wave action. At the last hearing that I was here, I know that's a different hearing, but Chairman Colombo pointed out that the FEMA maps are dated 2014, and he made a suggestion that, in his opinion, conditions have changed in the last 10 years, and therefore, I think he suggested that he was not relying upon a FEMA map. We dug deep into the FEMA website, and the map that we are relying upon that is attached to Mr. Humphrey's letter is the subject of a map revision by FEMA that is dated July 7th, 2021. So the map that we've submitted to you is only 3 years old. And so again, this particular area is clearly out of the MOWA, and it's clearly in the MIWA. And since there will not be waves of 2 to 3 feet in height, we would respectfully submit to you that that regulation is not applicable, and that there's not a prohibition on vertical walls. And I've submitted a lengthy letter that spells all this out in more detail. And again, Mr. Humphreys has submitted a letter going over the map and why it's outside of that area. The other matter that came up in this hearing and also in that one that I was involved in 2 weeks ago was Regulation 25C72. And I think the references might have actually changed because of your amendments, but that's how it was referred to last time at this particular project in my last project too. In 25C72 sets up some setbacks to wetlands. The title of the provision is setbacks / critical erosion areas. And so I would suggest that the regulation was actually intended to have setbacks from critical erosion areas which are identified on CZM maps. But I know that there's an opinion of town council that says it's applicable throughout the town. I just want to note that the town council's opinion, which I attached to my letter, the attorney said that he had no direct knowledge of how this commission has historically interpreted that regulation. And I have been practicing on the Cape now for, I hate to say 30 years, and I've been before this commission from time to time. And it's my understanding and experience that it's always historically been interpreted to apply to critical erosion areas. And I would suggest that the interpretation is now somewhat new, and I would ask that you act consistently and go back to the old. But having said that, even if you apply it in this area, which is not a critical erosion area, we contend that there's an interpretation of the regulation that should be applied that would allow this project to proceed, and that's the following. The regulation talks about in terms of setbacks shall be maintained. And so this particular project involves a house that was built in 1960, and the setback from the house to the seawall is 26.2 feet. And so I would suggest that you can interpret this regulation as saying a new structure may be allowed as long as that pre-existing setback is maintained. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, the current setback is 26.2, whereas the proposed house is setback 31.3. So we are arguably maintaining that setback, and in fact, we're pulling the house back from the wetland, making the setback actually improve. And the house can't be pulled back any further because of the septic system requirements. I talked to the engineer about this, and he's here to answer any questions that you might have. The house has been pulled away from the wetland and towards the road as far as possible, with still retaining the ability to put the septic system in where it's being proposed. Lastly, I'd like to also simply mention that the zoning board also has a setback. The zoning bylaw says structures have to be set back from wetlands 50 feet. So it's a very similar setback to your requirement. And in this case, the applicant has already been to the zoning board, and the zoning board found very similarly that the setback was 26.2, and by pulling the house back, the zoning board said the setback is being improved. And I think that when this regulation was enacted, I know that the zoning board is a different jurisdiction, but land use regulations tend to kind of follow a pattern, and I would suggest to you that this maintain the setback language is very similar to a zoning language, and again, under zoning, it's not only being maintained, but being improved. Those are the points that I wanted to make. Again, I have a full team here available to answer any questions that you might have. And I also know that Beatrice is here and wants to say a few words about the, did Stan arrive?
You looking for Bob Bull?
No, I was looking for Stan Humphreys.
My bad, then.
Is Stan Humphreys on the conference line?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Oh, good, good.
Turn up the volume.
So I'm sure that Stan heard everything that I said. He doesn't need to repeat it. I know.
Okay, listening to Zoom. And you wonder.
That needs to stop.
I know the hour is starting to get late, but maybe if I could just have Stan very briefly talk about what I talked about, because he's more qualified than I.
So is he going to add anything above and beyond what you said? Because I think there's a little bit of dialogue still that could happen, and then maybe he can add to it?
That would be fine, because I think I covered what he said, but he's very, if you read his letter, he's very firm in his opinion where this zone is and isn't, and that he's clear that this property is outside of the MOA area.
Sure. For the Regulation 25C72, where you were just referencing that historically we hadn't been upholding that, well, we've started to require waivers for that. So we can't stop now requiring waivers for it and go back, because then that's arbitrary, as I think you would probably agree. So we have started requiring waivers from people and applicants. So that has been what we have been told, well, you've started, so now you need to keep going with it. And if town council, representing the town's interest, is reviewing something some way, then we're here to kind of uphold the town's interests. And if town council has said an opinion, then we're kind of held to it, right?
Yeah,
So
I would agree with that, but I would respectfully submit to you that there's a body of case law that says that when a regulation has been interpreted consistently for a period of time, that is given deference, and that a change in that is arbitrary. And what the town council said in his opinion was that he had no knowledge of how it had been interpreted in the past. But I understand that you're going to follow town council, so I'm not going to argue that point. There is a waiver request in the record that was written by a consultant other than I. It's a general waiver request. It talks about the setback.
Okay.
I would suggest to you that there therefore is a waiver request before you.
Okay.
But I want to put on the record that we don't think that we need a waiver because of the way that I've argued the case. And so the waiver request is without prejudice and with a reservation of rights.
is it a waiver request or is it not?
Yes.
Okay. So you submit a waiver request for Regulation 25, and we can move forward with that.
Yes.
I understand the difference of wave action areas. I think we all get that and can move forward with that. Can I ask questions that aren't related to everything that you just hashed out?
And sure.
I know that was a lot, and
No, you can-
I think you did a great job. I have.
You can ask any question you want, and if I can't answer it, the team is.
I think I have a
here.
question for Beatrice.
Okay.
When I look at the existing conditions plan,
This is mine.
it shows an existing tree line, basically like down, what side of the property is this? I think it's the north side of the property. And then when I look at this plan, that existing tree line is completely changed. It looks like to me to be either arborvitaes or it's just completely changed. Cedars. So is the existing vegetation being taken out to put those in?
Yeah, they're Bernice Waller, from Bernice Waller Landscapes. Yes, we are proposing in that area to remove some of the invasive material. There's some burning bush, some invasive vines, and some Andromeda in there, and we are proposing to remove that. But you are correct in that the existing, invaded area is, has moved towards the western property line slightly.
Okay. And then, is there anything on the lot remaining?
Great question. Yes, there is a tree up in the front, near the seawall, that does remain up in the top right corner. And really, and then there's a area of an existing tree line along the road that is being maintained. Other than that, really the mitigation planting that we're proposing, that is going in all existing lawn areas. There's not a lot of planted area on the site. There is a
Right.
lot of lawn on the site.
Right, okay. Okay, I was just trying to visualize it better. I will go to other commissioners for questions. Aaron, do you have anything?
I don't have any questions.
Sandy? Sarah, is there anything that you would like to ask?
You know, I think I'd just like some more information on section 25 and how that relates here, but I don't know if that's appropriate for this or if we continue this.
Yeah, there's been a difference in interpretation of how section 25, how it reads. And it's basically either saying that the floodplain, the coastal flood area subject to coastal storm flow is a wetland or it's not a wetland, or how it requires setbacks, how it requires mitigation. And we have of late realized that it says that it is a wetland, that even though it's a flood zone, that it is a wetland, and that it affords it some protection. So it's been confusing, it's been challenging, not everybody agrees. Yeah, that's kind of where we're at with it. And we can certainly go into it in more detail, I think. But for this, I think what I had wanted to see was just a submission of a waiver request, because if they're asking for a waiver from the applicability of that regulation, then we can move forward. And the vertical walls, it says you can't construct vertical walls in a flood zone.
Sure.
But if the building code has provisions for flood zones, and if they're meeting that, which they can demonstrate they are, then there's a way forward. So that's, I think, I don't know, I might have just overgeneralized that, but trying to find a way to move forward on this one. I think.
One other matter, again, I don't want to argue the point too much, but the setbacks, it doesn't say all wetlands. It says setbacks shall be maintained in areas contiguous to coastal beaches, coastal wetlands, coastal cliffs, banks, rocky shores, and existing man-made shorelines.
And if you look at what a coastal wetland is, in there it says that a flood zone is a coastal wetland. So that's where we've been tripped up.
Okay. Yeah, I guess, again, I think if the setback is related to erosion, you know, a flood zone extends significantly far inland. But there is a waiver request before you for that.
There is.
Yeah.
Is there, I know you had another person on the line. I don't know if,
That was Stan, and
Yeah.
so he was going to speak to the flood zones and matters that I addressed. So if he's not there, I think we're okay.
I think, yeah.
I just want to point out, though, too, that he did attach a copy. Who's there?
We can hear you. You have something to say?
Oh, okay. This is Stan Humphrey, so I'm available for questions or any other presentation
I think
you'd like to hear.
I mean, if you guys have questions, but I think we're okay. Was there any other questions from commissioners right now?
What's the elevation? I don't see it on the plan.
So it's 7, 6, 5. You can see like the dotted line with the, yeah. Yeah. Are there any questions from, or comments from the audience? Okay, seeing none. If there is no other deliberations or comments, I would entertain a motion.
Okay, Madam Chair, I'll make a motion for 279 Martin Story Road, CS Realty Trust, to close an issue, and with the recommendation of a condition of submission of a signed 3-year mitigation monitoring contract between the property owner and a qualified professional.
Thank you, Sandy.
Second.
Thanks,
Oh,
Erin.
I thought I heard Sarah.
That's you.
Deaf, jeez.
All right, made by Sandy, seconded by Erin. Is there any other deliberation? Thank you. Voting, Sandy?
No.
Sarah?
No.
Erin?
Yes.
And I was going to be a yes. I am a yes. So the motion does not.
Actually, I have a point of order. So there's 2 yeses and there's 2 nos.
Yes.
And no disrespect whatsoever, but the new member wasn't here the last time. So I don't think she's eligible to vote.
Yes.
So it seems like there's a quorum of 4, but 3 voting members and
It's
2.
only because this has been heard 3 times now. This is yet the 3rd hearing that we've heard on it. So I think you're correct, because you weighed in on 2 of them. Is that correct?
Can I ask just a question? If the public hearing is still open, does that apply? Is there a participation? Does the Mullen rule come into effect if the public hearing hasn't been closed?
I still think it does. I think are you talking about the statute that allows a member to, yeah, so I think the statute applies if you miss a meeting. So I don't think it matters whether the meeting is still open or not. If there were public hearings, every commissioner can miss one and then watch the video, read the minutes, and sign the affidavit.
Right.
And so, and I think you have to have that affidavit signed to be able to vote.
Okay.
And so,
I would agree with
no
that.
offense whatsoever, but if you didn't attend the meetings and you haven't watched the video and you haven't signed the affidavit, then I don't think she's eligible to vote.
So that might be true, but we also just started this whole Mullen rule thing today.
It's been adopted by the town since 2016.
Okay, we've never heard of it before the last 2 weeks. And then I didn't sign it either. I mean, I haven't signed an affidavit saying anything, and I missed one of the hearings, if it's indeed for missing a single session.
So then, what does that mean? We don't have a quorum.
We don't have a
then?
quorum.
Can Marjorie read, can she vote after the fact? Because she was here for
She
most of it.
missed, she missed one of them, too.
Oh.
We only have 1 hearing.
Yeah, so I guess we'll have to ask for a continuance,
Right.
which we're happy to do. But just so we all know how to go forward, did this hearing happen? Because I don't know if there was a quorum or not.
Our last 2, we asked for continuance.
Yeah.
I do want to correct Brian in that this is the 2nd time we've been in front of you. Every time that we've been here,
It's only
I've
twice.
been here. It's only 2.
Okay, so
We're
I
not
have been
losing
here
our
for all of
minds.
them.
Yes,
Okay.
it's only 2 times.
Okay.
Okay, that's
But
very-
what, with what,
Yeah.
now with
Well, I
that,
wa-
what
yeah, I
what does
wasn't
it
here.
mean?
So with that, we still have 3
have a
members.
quorum.
We still have a quorum.
Okay, yeah.
Great.
We've only been here twice.
So then there's only, 3, wait, Drew, 3 is a quorum? 4 is a quorum.
You, Sandy.
So I
Sarah
think-
can't weigh in on it.
Yeah, my argument would be there's a quorum of the board because there's 4 of you here, and 4 of 7, is a quorum. And then
For the purposes of this hearing.
for the purpose of this
Eligible
hearing,
voters.
the voting quorum is 3.
Right,
And
right.
the rule of it is that the majority of the quorum can act.
Right.
So I think that out of the 3, there's 2 positive votes and 1 negative.
Correct.
Yeah,
Majority of the quorum can act.
right, so 2 out of 3, yeah.
Okay, so it passes.
Yeah, I think so. If you were here, and I wasn't here, so forgive me,
I was here.
this is my first.
We were both here.
Alex was here.
Yes.
Okay, okay. Have fun recording that one. That's,
Yikes.
okay, so then it passes.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, so we can close that hearing and it passes.
Great.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And don't hold that against us next year.
That guy's still listening.
Got it. Have a good night.
We need to, if we miss a hearing, we need to sign something, yeah. Okay. Yes. All right. So now calling the 7:06 hearing for 1 Pontiac Road, Fernando Carrero and Eduarda Frias Carrero. Proposed plunge pool and paver patio, Representative Cape and Island Engineering.
Better be. It's all your fault.
God. Guys, I really wanted us out of here by 10 and I didn't do it.
No, we got 12 minutes.
10 minutes. We could do it.
Come on, Raul.
Come on,
Quick.
talk fast.
Good evening. For the record, Raul Lizardi from Cape and Islands Engineering. Any questions? This project, strangely enough, it's a proposed pool, new pool patio. The actual location of the pool and pool patio are outside of the flood zone, are in elevations above the flood zone. The flood zone ends at elevation 11. There's elevation 11 contour on the plan in front of the house. There's a different elevation 11 on the back. It is all subject to the same water level. This is not a LIMWA flood zone. It's above the LIMWA elevation. And the project is within 150 feet of the flood zone. So we are before you with this application. So the project is also filed with the Board of Appeals because of setbacks to the flood zone line. It's not meeting the 50-foot setback to the flood line, which is elevation 11. So an application has been filed with the Board of Appeals. To control draw down water from the pool and for maintenance purposes, there's a proposed dry well on the project on the back of the pool. If there's any questions, I'll try to answer.
I had a question about the 2 trees that have to be removed. Are they being replaced?
So the applicant already removed those 2 trees. There is no intention to replacing them. The property, the portion of the land that is subject to coastal storm flowage, is roughly 6,000 square feet, and there's, behind the fence, there's already 1,100 square feet of naturally vegetated area. That back side of the property adjoins the town property for the town ramp. So that meets the requirements of natural vegetated areas for a lot or for an area that's less than 10,000 square feet of land subject to coastal storm flowage. So the applicant at the moment does not propose to replace the 2 trees in the back.
If I could add some commentary to that
Sure.
issue. So this is a landlocked lot within land subject to coastal storm flowage, meaning it doesn't come within 150 feet of any other resource areas.
Right.
And the project locus, the proposed patio and pool, are outside of the 100-year floodplain, including the 2 trees. But having said that, the standard under Regulation 25, this is 25 Section C2D, requires that 10% of a landlocked lot within land subject to coastal flow remain naturally vegetated. And the area of this lot within land subject to coastal storm flow is 1,100 square feet, which constitutes, the natural vegetation area within land subject to coastal storm flow is 1,100 square feet. So based on the lot size, that's 18% of the lot within land subject to coastal storm flow that remains naturally vegetated. The standard is 10%. So it exceeds that standard.
I can read, Drew. Thank you. for
Yeah, no
that.
problem.
Do you have any other things you want to add about this one? while you're going?
No, other than it is in the buffer zone to land subject to coastal storm flow, and there are no existing standards for the buffer zone to land subject to coastal storm flow.
Okay. Any other questions from commissioners? If we are to condition this, it has to, if they drain the pool, it cannot be on site. It has to be into it by a truck, if they have to draw down the pool.
So you don't want the dry well?
If the pool
The
is to
dry
be
well,
drained, it must
yeah,
be done
if
off
the pool
site.
has to be completely emptied for whatever reason.
Oh, completely empty?
That's-
The dry well will not manage that?
Yes,
Okay, but yes, for seasonal lowering,
just little bit.
the dry well is what we have proposed, okay.
Okay. And any disturbed sites will have to just be stabilized and restored.
Yes, we do have a limit of work, and yeah, most of the disturbance is already disturbed. It's lawn areas and just side yard.
Okay. There's nobody here to put it out to the audience. Although-
There's that guy in the corner.
Yeah.
Sorry, Alex, you are here. You recognize that.
I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion for 1 Pontiac Road, Fernando Carrero and Eduardo Friaros Carrero, to close an issue with the following conditions: restoration of all areas used for construction, access to their previous existing condition, no drainage of pool water within any areas of wetlands jurisdiction. If the pool must be drained all the way down, should be done so via use of a pump truck.
Thank you,
I can't
Sandy.
talk.
Do we have a second?
Second. Oh, did you? No.
Thank you, Aaron. Any discussion? Voting, Sandy,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. It passes. It is before 10 still.
One more.
But we do have to go back. I'm so sorry, group. We have to go back to the
6:36.
636 hearing for Zero Bug, now calling the 636 hearing for Zero Bug Shields Road, Town of Mashpee Conservation, proposed tree planting, Earth Day 2024, Representative Self Dan.
Time's up.
Let's move.
How's it going? I'm Dan Ken, Assistant Conservation Agent for the town of Mashpee. I am also a resident of 02649. And today I'm here to present to you for an RDA for an Earth Day project at Santuit Pond Preserve. So basically, this is an old abandoned bog at Santuit Pond Preserve. It's flagged up there. The biggest disturbance, that is not really a disturbance, but the biggest thing that's going to go in is a small walkway made from 6x6 timbers. That's going to go in so that the bank to the cranberry bog just doesn't get destroyed with all the walking, because each person could possibly do 3 to 4 trips themselves. And then hopefully we have some decent amount of people, there'll be a lot of walking. And then there'll be just some trimming on some of those pitch pines you can see. Now you can see those pitch pines where they stop. Where they stop is literally 10 feet from open water. The pitch pines all in this entire bog are completely stressed. They have brown tips and they are dying out, mainly because pitch pines cannot stand in standing water. They are a sand species. They send out a massive taproot. If that taproot sits in standing water, they will die very slowly, but they will die. So this is a perfect opportunity. On the far right, in the middle picture, you will see that's the planting field. I'm on the very far end of it. And then that whole entire field will be planted. So there's one small change from this. There was originally 100 plants, 100 trees that were going to be put in the ground, 2-gallon pots. My supplier does not have those anymore. So I ordered 320 seedlings from another supplier, and they just came in today. So we got all those on site. So instead of 2-gallon pots, there'll be 100 2-gallon pots. There'll be 320 seedlings to put in the ground. This spot is extremely inundated with water, making it the perfect habitat for Atlantic white cedars, and I can attest to that because this has been standing fallow for some time now, and the bogs with all standing water around them have 0 trees in them, as you can see there from the picture, making that site perfect for planting of Atlantic cedars. And just my last note, this property historically, before all the bogs were in, I believe the bogs went in around 1946, 1948, to the record from the historic record as well as from the verbal record, this was an old Atlantic cedar swamp. So I'm being told that by the tribe, as well as there was one map from the late 1800s that showed roughly a big old swamp there. So if I had to guess, it'd be Atlantic cedar, because they dominated the entire east coast of the U.S. up until about 1950, when white cedar shingles became the new thing. So that is that.
Cool. Random fact, do you know that they used to use the water from the Atlantic cedar, bogs, the water from it on ships, because it didn't spoil the same way that regular water would, because it was more acidic. So on the casks on whaling ships and stuff, they purposely used that water because it wouldn't get moldy.
Really?
That's awesome, actually.
Yeah.
How does that happen? What do they attribute it to?
It's just it's either more acidic, mold, whatever, for whatever reason, it won't
Yeah,
spoil the
Atlantic
same way.
white cedars, they can literally consume arsenic and stuff in the water. They can sit there for a while. They can sit in really not horribly polluted water, but just bad pH water or something like that, very acidic.
Yeah.
And they can survive it. So when you have a species of any type of tree or plant that's sitting in the water like that, inundated, they're going to leach whatever's in them out of it. Black walnut, they leach what's called juglanace. It's a natural herbicide. It can kill plants. That's why other plants don't grow around black walnut trees. So when that's inundated in water, the water itself will pick up that juglanace as well.
Same thing with beech tree growth.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you. I will accept a motion. This is an RDA.
Yes.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion for Zero Bog Shields Road, Town of Mashpee, conservation for a negative determination.
Great, thank you, Sandy.
Second?
Thank you, Erin. Any discussion? No, okay. Voting, Sandy?
Yes.
Sarah? Erin?
Yes.
And I am a yes. Woo.
Thank you, commissioners.
Yay.
So just to quickly try to wrap things up, you do have approval of meeting minutes from March 21st, 2024, but there is only 2 out of the 1, 2,
Yeah, we don't have
3,
a
4,
quorum.
5. So we're going to have to table that for April 18th because we don't have a presence of a quorum for those minutes who were attendees at that March 21st, 2024 hearing.
Okay.
So we're going to table that.
We just have to vote on the extension.
Oh, I guess we have to vote
Oh,
on
yeah,
an
the
extension
extension,
also.
sorry. Yeah.
I have to open up one more hearing, sorry, guys. Okay, it's a 7:09 hearing for 5 Clamshell Lane. This is Jean Ducas Cioli, trustee. They're requested to extend their order of conditions.
Yeah.
That it's just the time for the permit was up, so we just have to
Yeah, they're
extend
just
it.
about done.
Great.
Okay.
3280.
So make a motion?
Yeah.
Yes.
5 Clamshell Lane, to recommend approval of extension request.
Thank you, Sandy.
Second?
Thank you, Erin. Voting, Sandy,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Erin.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay.
Oh, man.
You got permits to sign before you leave. Please just pay attention to the permit. If, Sarah, you weren't eligible on that one, you don't sign it, okay?
And the permit will go by DEP number. That's
Which
how
we
you'll
don't-
ID it. So it's, that was for 279, so that would be 433264 will be the only one you don't sign. So, and I can, 3264, yeah.
When I voted no.
I don't have any of the numbers on March 7th.
I don't think I,
Do I sign them when I voted no?
Okay, that's fine.
Do we sign the ones we vote no on?
That's the one you voted no on?
No, I'm just
No, do
asking,
we-
do we sign the ones we vote no on?
Yes.
Because it's you're still acknowledging that the whole commission
Heard it.
voted, is right,
Yeah.
right? I don't know. Just sign them. I would say.
Paul hasn't.
Yeah, but sometimes Paul
But just,
doesn't.
just an FYI, Stacy unfortunately didn't provide the sign sheet for 17 Monomoskoye Road West, which was a denial.
So we have to stop by?
We are gonna have to stop by and
That's fine.
because we're gonna have until next Thursday to issue that.
Okay.
So we'll reach out and get signatures. Apologies for the
Okay.
inconvenience.
After Tuesday, I mean? Or before?
No, well, anytime. Tuesday's no longer a thing,
Yeah,
but
it's
just
no
we'll have to
longer,
stop by to
that
sign.
meeting can be completely disregarded. That was only in the event that we didn't have a quorum
Oh,
for that
okay.
hearing. But we did,
I'm confused.
so.
And then I just want to.
Monday.
I just want to say for the record, I think this was the first Conservation Commission hearing ever that was all female.
I was
Oh,
gonna say the
really?
same thing.
how about
Like,
that?
this is so
Commissioners for
weird.
Mashpee.
I have not.
And it's over before midnight.
It's over before midnight. So,
Well, we haven't adjourned yet.
I know, but we haven't adjourned. There's a bunch of Earth Day things coming up. Stay tuned for those, or like look out for them.
Oh, minutes.
We're not doing the minutes.
Oh,
We
we're
don't
not.
have enough.
We don't have enough, a quorum of voting members
No.
present at that
Yeah.
hearing?
So if I would entertain a motion to
Yeah.
end.
Motion to end.
Thank you, Sandy. Thank you, Erin. All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank You, all right, we're closed.
That was motion to adjourn, Sandy, and second by
Aaron.
Aaron.
All were in favor.